Well, welcome back to episode 46 of the Block Runner podcast. I'm your host, William, always here with your co-host, Iman.
What's up, guys?
All right, and today we bring you an expert in Axie Infinity player, NFT trader, and the founder of Axie.gg. He and his team built a series of intelligent algorithms to breed Axies, and they now own almost 10,000. Most of these, which will be available in the store, in his store next month. Today we bring you Ben Kelly. Thank you very much for joining us, man.
My pleasure. I can't say it's my store. It's definitely our store. It was a team effort to get this thing running.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So Ben is part of a team who has, I guess, essentially been breeding a bunch of Axie Infinities. And I believe we started with like 600 or so, correct?
The initial Axie pre-sale, I think origins were allocated at about 6,000, about 20% of which I think were Mystic Axies, which are special parts that will, in the eventual late game, have extra special animations.
So first of all, Ben has like probably one of the more interesting backgrounds that we've seen in quite a while.
Yeah, man.
Like he's into AR and virtual reality.
Yeah, we went to his YouTube channel and he's got like some really, really like cutting edge, interesting looking videos to me at least. I'm not too deep. I mean, okay, AR, my exposure to AR is like Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
I think that's my maximum exposure to that realm. I know I've seen there's a new game I just found called Roldopo, which is kind of like it feeds off of that same augmented reality concept that Pokemon Go like mainstream.
Yeah, it's almost a direct copy. It just it's just different, right?
Well, yeah, the objective is different, I guess. It's the same. Like you're using the real world Google Maps landscape.
That's right.
For the world.
Which you can own land in that world.
You're supposed to buy land, which sounds familiar if you've been watching this podcast. You're supposed to buy land and collect these natural resources that start spawning. Instead of Pokemon, you get like some resources that start to spawn in the zone.
Right.
And the objective, I guess, is to build like an infrastructure, a mining network on the land that you own, to harvest something called gems, which is their cryptocurrency, which isn't listed on exchange yet, but it's pending.
You don't mine gems, right? You mine like the qubits.
They're called qubits, which is like the in-game resource, and there's other resources too. But
and these are not NFTs or anything like that. There's just an in-game resource. Yeah,
not that I know of. But the point is these guys they're optimizing AR. Apparently, there's some AI built into this game. There's the blockchain aspect of it all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's built on Ethereum or anything like that. I'm sure it's like a normal game, like it's hosted on a server. But the cryptocurrency itself is like an ERC20.
Okay, so like the gaming aspects of it, the mechanics and all that, they're all probably on a server, and it's just.
I believe so. I'm not an expert yet, but I downloaded the app and I'm getting started.
Yeah,
I'm downloading. I mean, I'm not downloading. I'm mining some. We're not even mining. I'm collecting some
qubits.
They're just randomly spawning around me. So
yeah,
but it's interesting,
and it's funny because you kind of like you turn on the game and like there's this AR aspect to it where you just kind of turn around in your chair to find these qubits and you just kind of absorb them.
Which is good because like people are familiar with that, like I said, because Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
So, and I think it was a huge viral success. I think not just because it's a Pokemon game, but dude, it was interesting seeing people get out and like
get outside and like
form like little mini communities. You know what I mean? Like in your
was
neighborhood.
Crazy. Yeah, I even went to I guess a park. And there was like a ton of people there playing that game.
Yeah, I remember I went to like it's kind of like a shopping center type place. There's a bunch of shopping malls around there. And like, dude, at least a couple hundred like gamer kids playing Pokemon Go. And a lot of the people walking by like,
confused?
Some of them are like kind of aggressive, like calling like, look at these fucking nerds and shit like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
wow.
Some of them are being total assholes about it. But the other ones were kind of like interested too.
Yeah.
And then they're like, hey, what are you guys doing? And then they would tell them.
Yeah.
And like, just download the game and start playing with us,
Right.
I did that for like a couple weeks. I think most people did. It kind of like fizzled.
Yeah. No, I think there's still people playing, but like, it's essentially fizzled.
That ridiculous level that it was at.
Yeah. I always think about Pokemon Go and thinking about NFTs. And if Niantic and Nintendo come out with Pokemon Go, but NFT style, like I think you're gonna see like a consistent player base.
Yeah, because like in Pokemon Go, the goal was to collect like the coolest and best Pokemon, right? So you could battle your neighborhood leaders. There was like a tower where I think only one person could control.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah.
So you wanted to be like the biggest badass and like kick them off the tower and put your Pokemon up there and your name and your profile pic and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, you didn't earn anything.
Yeah, you didn't,
except for clout. A little bit of glory, a little bit.
Yeah,
of glory.
You gain levels, and I mean that's pretty much it.
Yeah, but the point is like
lot.
You could literally, and obviously this Roldopo game is kind of like they're bringing that gaming aspect and trying to introduce real world value into it. So as an incentive mechanism to keep playing the game.
Yeah,
and there's a whole world of this being built, a whole ecosystem that's like on the ground floor. If you listen to our Metalith interview,
yeah,
goodness, man.
Yeah, Joel and Mark. Yeah, those guys are cool.
If you like this episode, this podcast that we're about to get into, definitely go back and check out the Metalith interview. These guys are building out like analytics tools and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the NFT market is kind of difficult to
measure.
Yeah, it's not like cryptocurrencies, right? Cryptocurrencies, they all have spot prices, so I mean it's real easy to tell where the market is headed. But NFTs,
hey guys,
yes, hey Ben.
So on that note about measurements.
Yeah,
I've had a few conversations on Twitter with people who are encountering the same issue.
Yeah.
Which is, how do we get a sense of market cap, velocity, because it's so fragmented? It's great to hear that people are working on that, because that's the kind of credibility that the NFT world needs in order for people to take it seriously and realize it's not just about games.
Yeah, 100%.
No, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about your background, Ben, if possible. So tell us a little bit about like how you got into. Well, first you were big into Magic the Gathering, right?
Yeah, Magic the Gathering has basically been my profession for the last 10 years, and I've been playing it since 1994. So when I was, I guess, 8, 9, 10 years old, Magic had just come out, and I was already a baseball card collector because I'm a huge baseball fan, and I'm a huge just kind of collector. I come from a family of like antique dealers, merchant sailors, traders, Silk Road people, I'm sure, back in the day. So trading and such is kind of in my blood, as is competition. I'm not like a vicious competitor. I care about winning a lot, but like the esports team is run by Chief, who is like, if I lose a tournament, I don't really care. But if he loses a tournament, he's like, okay, back to the drawing board. We gotta hustle.
Right.
So the reason that matters is because I found that out very quickly once I started playing Magic seriously. So I started playing as a kid. Fast forward to 20 years, 2008, 2009. Fresh out of university, the whole financial world implodes. I and everyone else I know lose my job. So I'm in New York City. I can't make rent. I decided to move out to the Midwest, about 3 hours outside Chicago, just because the cost of living was low and I had some opportunities there. With my last $100 of disposable income, I bought a booster box of Magic cards, a box about yay big with a random assortment. Got a few lucky pulls from my, they're like chests. If you don't know Magic the Gathering, it's just random packs that you open and you get a rare and some commons and some stuff in between.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get like a diamond or a foil or, whatever the equivalent is.
But the idea.
So I was like, okay, you know what? We're going to gamble. Go ahead.
But the idea behind Magic, in case anybody doesn't know how the game works, is you have to build decks, correct, in order to compete against other players. And, the strength.
Right.
I never really played much, but I mean, I understood the concept. I had friends who played, and I played a lot of World of Warcraft and games like that. Well,
we're gonna get to World of Warcraft in just a second. You nailed it when you said that. You kind of have to build a deck to get competitive.
Yeah.
And I kind of it's just like my catchphrase on stream has quickly become do the math.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, what decks are good right now in the local tournament scene? So there were 3 stores in town. It became 4 when I opened my own. Sorry to spoil it, but it's good to know where this went when I started to see where it kind of ended up. So I found the deck that cost about $150. I traded my way into it with the cards I had just bought. And then I had no job, no anything, no resources. I was like depressed and like massively overweight and just in a terrible, terrible place in life. Kind of by my own making. No excuses on that one, but you know, I remember the moment that was like more or less rock bottom. And I was like, okay, if it gets much worse than this, there's no coming back from it. So this is the moment, we got to try to turn it around. So I traded for that deck. I used all my spare time to play. I didn't have anyone to play against sometimes, so I'd play against an imaginary opponent, playing through like thought experiments and case studies, trying to find out how quickly I can kill somebody, trying to figure out what happens when my opening hand is just absolutely unplayable and I'm basically stuck with half of a hand. As a result, I started winning tournaments like crazy. And I won a game where I basically had half of a hand to start the game. And I was playing against like a young teenage kid who was really, really arrogant for no reason. And no one really liked him. And he was always really stone-faced and mean. And as soon as he saw my situation, he just started being like, oh man, you're so done. The match is over. And I'm like, hey, we'll see. I beat him with the 4-card hand. Usually you have 7. I beat him with the 4-card hand because I got lucky, do the right things, played tight. And then this is like the worst moment of my life. He started crying when he lost the match. No one ever saw this kid break, but I broke him.
Yeah. Wow.
Because all I had was time. All I had was time and brain power. I've been playing Magic for ages. I've been learning how to do tech work. I had studied a lot of finance. I got some stockbroker certifications. And I wanted to go into finance, but then the finance world collapsed, which directed me back to my passion of Magic, which led to me doing this tournament thing. So I started winning. I crushed tournaments at the local scene. I literally became like the end boss of every tournament because I just had so much more resources in terms of time to practice and experience that my lack of money didn't matter. You know, I figured out what resources I had more of and less of, and just I kind of looked at it like a system and optimized for what I had to get the thing that I wanted, even if the ratio sucked. You know, think about like a car or a bicycle with a gear. If you're trying to go up a mountain on a bicycle in really high gear, your wheels are going to try to spin really fast and you won't get any
traction
ability to climb. But if you drop that gear down way low and you put everything you have into each step, that gear ratio is going to shoot you up that mountain by doing the magical force multipliers that it does. I did the same thing with Magic. I said, okay, what do I have? I have nothing but time. You know, my girlfriend was at work all day, working long hours. I didn't want to go back to working retail, though I eventually did. So I just grinded it out, man. Every day I'd try to find a tournament. If there was 5 in a day, I'd drive to one 3 hours away to play for bigger prizes. And eventually I got enough cards from my winnings to build the best deck in the metagame, which cost about 5 times as much as my starter deck did. But it was a way more technical, complex, controlling, long-form deck. And I knew that if I could get to that deck, I had the play experience and the play style to just absolutely dominate with that particular strategy. My only bottleneck was the money. And instead of trying to get a job, I started trading. I remember the day that my friend was short on cash. When I was short on cash, I was hungry. I'm talking about going up against, like, I don't have any money. Maybe call my parents to bail me out a little bit, but, like, I don't come from money like that. So I'm like, okay, how do I get the most calories for my dollar? Advice my dad gave me. He was fixing buses as a diesel mechanic when he was like that age. He's like, listen, just do what it takes to make the money. You'll get through it. Just, get calories, get calories, get calories. And so I started trading Magic cards for cheeseburgers. And damn straight, not kidding. I started trading Magic cards for French fries. I bought somebody's Magic card collection at a Denny's restaurant off of the interstate in the American rural Midwest at 3 a.m. while eating pancakes and drinking beer. Not my finest moment, but definitely one of those things where you realize how deep you're in.
Yeah.
So I quickly came to put it together that, okay, Magic cards are basically cash because I know everyone in the local community. They trust me, they respect me, they know I'm fair. It all clicked when one day I read a tournament report. This is probably like late 2009. I had just signed up for Twitter. That's like the level we're at. Bitcoin hadn't been invented yet. It's crazy how long ago it was, but I read a tournament report. This is before they were even streaming video for Magic tournaments. and it said, hey, this one strategy did really, really well. And it used this one card where no one had ever used it before in a way that no one's ever used it before. I took one look at that tournament report, took a look at my trade binder, was like, well, I have none of these. Kind of made some mental notes about who had what in their trade binder. You know, I kind of like, if I'm in a market, I just keep this like mental, like state network of just kind of what's going on. I can't tell you what everyone has, but I can say he's not likely to have that for trade, or I haven't seen that in his collection.
Right.
And so obviously in NFT, the same skill set is one-to-one portable from one to the other, which is kind of why I was able to do what we're about to describe.
Sure.
I didn't have to reinvent any wheels. It was really just a few things to modify it, and those few things took like 6 months. To get back to Magic, I bought a bunch of those cards. I think I bought like 8 or 16 of them. I needed 4 for myself to play with them. And then I thought, okay, well, they were $1 each. I went into the store the next week after I got them, and I traded them out. I think I valued them at about 5 times what I bought them for. Now that's a crazy profit margin. I'd never seen anything like that in my entire life. I'd never run a business or done any like real trading before.
Sure.
Yeah. That's always.
I realized I just made 500%.
No, I was just gonna say that's always like the first hook that gets people addicted to these types of things. That's what got me hooked. Yeah, there you go. Profits. Like so when you start to realize like, hey, you know, this thing works. That's when you get real addicted to it.
Yep.
But yeah, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, you're dead on. That's exactly what hooked me.
Yeah.
As soon as I realized that this was money.
Yeah.
Magic cards were just money. That's when everything I learned up until that point clicked in for me. So this is where I'm going to go back 10 years prior, which is 20 years ago, which makes me feel old to say that. But I started early. Okay, I've been doing this since before I was a legal adult, a physical adult, a fully functioning human being. I just like earliest memories are stacking and sorting baseball cards. It's a sickness. I don't know what to say.
I don't know.
My grandfather was like, what is this kid doing? My parents were like, hey, at least it's not drugs. 6. The point remains.
Yeah.
So I was a weird kid. I had all those hobbies. Baseball cards, Magic cards, then a little bit of a layoff in high school as I just kind of built like computers and learned how to do tech and played some sports badly for the most part. After I went to college in the States and, not too far from where I'm from, New York. And everyone in my hall played Magic, like at least half of them. So I immediately rekindled. I didn't go as hardcore as I did the first 10 years later. I just wasn't in a place in my life where I knew how to do that. But I went hard as well as a 19-year-old can-do who just loves battling monsters. So of course I took it seriously, but I was university. I didn't have time to make it into a business. After university, graduated, real life kicked in. So I have this basis of tournament play. Got some really good coaching from some really good players, and just for some context, this is the story that we're about to tell about Axie and NFTs. So you can just kind of sub in Axie for Magic in what I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
In most regards. So the key to my Magic business working was that multiplier. Most businesses don't get the ability to buy inventory and flip it for 5x. I realized that's the way to riches. I read I listened to 4 Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss.
It's a good book.
On the way to a tournament where I was driving, 5-6 hours to play. And that's also around the time I realized that I missed the cut to top 8 for a playoffs in that tournament by 0.01 percentage tie breaks. My record in any other tournament would have made me a top seed, but that's when I realized the difference between making $2,000 and $50 was a worse chance than a coin flip. And I realized I spent all weekend to get nothing. Next time I played, I got knocked out in like the first half of day one, spent the rest of the weekend trading, and went home with thousands of dollars in my pocket profit. I was like, okay, well, this is an easy call. Done. No more competing. I'll play to keep my head in the game. I'll play for fun. I'll play to win. If I win money, great. But like my real profit's going to come from my engine that I build. What Tim Ferriss taught me how to build. Build something that doesn't require you to touch it once it's running. I come from a family of engineers. And as soon as someone explained business to me like an engine, I was like, Okay.
It's clear.
Business. Right. It's clear as freaking day.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what's the gas? The gas is resources, money or stock. What's the catalyst? The catalyst is customer demand. What's the supply? It's your fuel tank. Easy stuff. Compression ratios, things like that. It's not like I wasn't trained to do this, but I picked up enough from my family and my reading.
It's almost intuitive.
Old school. Yeah, it's intuitive just because I was raised around it. It's probably in the blood too, just because, but I'm working with conceptual level stuff, not like the hardcore stuff that, my ancestors worked with, like raw computer science with vacuum tubes, kind of trying to stand on the, squat on the shoulders of giants.
Mm-hmm.
So, it just all became intuitive when I said, okay, well, my finance certifications, I know how markets work. I know how derivatives work. I know how all of that stuff works, and then I saw what happens when it doesn't work. Okay, finance, now I understand part of the engine. Magic, well, I know Magic stone cold. Okay, that's like the car. That's what we're trying to power overall. Then the interpersonal stuff, like trading, I've always been that plays to my extroverted personality type. So I had to learn tactics like negotiation and advanced body language reading and psychology, all of these things. I love to read. I read constantly. I read fast. I take notes. I'm a big old bookworm. So I just kind of learned all these tactics over the years. And that just, those are performance tweaks to the engine that, make them start easier, make them run more efficiently, smoother, quieter, etc. So every one of these little skill sets started to lock into place. All these concepts started to get more and more refined. I started getting paid to write about Magic cards more and more, up to a couple $100 an article. Paid my rent with that. Worked a retail job to keep the bills from piling up. Brutal stuff like car broke down, can't fix it, middle of the winter. Stuff that's like from a cartoon. I felt like I was living in a cartoon. It's like, okay, I just keep getting my ass kicked over and over and over again. Keep getting set back. I just kind of realized it was because I wasn't on the right path. And then each time I was being nudged towards the right path or being reminded. Like when I was walking across a parking lot at 6 a.m. to go to a job I hated that I had left at 10 p.m. that night, fixing computers for dumb people when I wanted to be building empires, that sucked, man.
Yeah.
That sucked. So finally I used what I learned working in retail to start my own Magic retail store. Did it on a bootstrap budget, didn't have maybe 15 grand. 18-month trial commercial lease. Really interesting 18 months of my life. But I also realized, well, what would Tim Ferriss say? He'd say, no,
it's not sustainable.
It doesn't work for you while you sleep until you have employees.
Yep.
And also it doesn't give you that force multiplier like a gear does. It's like a steady engine that will never, it's like a rocket engine that'll only get you so far without another booster. And I realized the biggest bottleneck was handling these physical cards, manipulating them, pricing them, and all of that. I prototyped an early version of a computer vision software that would snapshot a card and match it with a card in the database. It worked like garbage. It was literally held together by tape. But 5 years later, we actually built that into fully functional card scanning technology. I could take a Magic card and I could wave it in front of this camera if my software was running. This was a Magic card. Ding! It would ding like you're checking out at the supermarket, tell you what card it is, everything you need to know about it. So things like that I started developing as I was trying to build my own store out. I had tens of thousands of dollars of cards that I didn't know what they were, didn't know where they were, and really I needed to sell them for operating capital. They're what we would call dead stock. And that's just your money decaying a slow death and doing nothing for you but costing you more money. When I bought Magic card collections, and I'm talking about like tens of thousands of cards stacked like, boom, this high. Huge, like cubes of cards. I have a permanent like hunch in my neck from sitting there sorting through them, which is why I made that stupid scanner so my neck stopped hurting.
Right.
It worked. And then everyone wanted to buy it because their necks freaking hurt too. And their employees kept mispricing their assets and blah, blah, blah. So I prototyped that for my store. I prototyped a system that would go aggregate all the offers for Magic cards on the internet to purchase them from players. Made a price aggregator for myself. Then I realized I was having 20 tabs open, and every single card I had to go through every single tab and manually input things to shopping carts and blah, blah, blah. this was me selling my inventory to bigger merchants that I also had a pre-existing relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a big inventory supplier for them. We, again, we grew to get each other's work rhythms. We grew to gain trust. And then as I became more public by writing, that trust only got amplified more and more and more. So the retail store was cool. I learned a crap load about tournament organizing, which has been great for our work in esports. Sales, of course. And then after 18 months, my lease was coming up and the business model just sucked. I was chained to the store 16 hours a day. And there was just a whole bunch of nonsense, like moving around cardboard is a terrible business model for somebody technical. It's just infuriating because it's like you're trying to performance tune a 30-year-old carbureted RV engine instead of working on like a turbojet. And ask me about trying to performance tune a 30-year-old carbureted RV engine, because all I'll say is I don't know, and the mechanic couldn't figure it out either, and it broke and it's dead now.
Right.
So like that's why I didn't want to spend all my energy moving magic cards, because you're never going to get around the fact that you have to transport like physical atoms and matter somewhere else. Like crypto is pure information. It's on the electron level. When you think about it physics wise, collectible cards now no longer make sense.
Mm-hmm.
We've solved that problem. You want a physical asset? Okay, burn the token, send it to a 3D printer that mints the physical card. Reverse the burn, and then you have a token.
Hell yeah.
Easy. So I realized as soon as Bitcoin came out, I was like, okay, this is going to be a thing. This is 2010. I didn't make like billions of dollars. I'm not like a multimillionaire. I'm not crazy rich.
Mm-hmm.
In a great place, very successful as far as I'm concerned, and growing. But like, I don't want people to think that like I just hit the lottery on Bitcoin and it all is easy streets. Quite the opposite. Many, 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 many FOMOs over the last decade where I should have been a billionaire if I had just bought Bitcoin and did nothing.
Yeah.
So then what was the initial point where you found out about Bitcoin? And because I know there's ties to Magic the Gathering and exchanging of it. I mean, I've heard so much about Mt. Gox. So there was like an online exchange of these Magic the Gathering cards. Were you somehow involved in that? It sounds like, you were definitely involved.
So Mt. Gox was not Magic related.
No, really?
For the majority of its life. It was originally meant to be Magic the Gathering online exchange.
Yeah.
But whatever happened to it became nothing related.
Yeah.
I had money on Mt. Gox, and, me and my colleagues saw the writing on the wall and got the hell out of Dodge.
Oh, really?
Didn't lose anything on that one. Yeah.
What was the red flag?
I was like, okay, listen to the millionaire friend who's bailing out his money from Mt. Gox. Follow his lead. Trust your intuition.
Yeah.
Bye.
Interesting.
So, yeah, and Bitcoin, one of my Magic friends actually told me about it. We saw it on Hacker News, which is a techie blog.
Mm-hmm.
I took one look at it, and I felt the same way I did when I saw Ethereum in 2013. To quote one of my mentors, I was like, well, that's clearly the future. There's no doubt that this is going to work one day. And what it's worth doesn't matter, because this idea, if no one does anything with this idea, I will take it and do something with it. I am the user of last resort for Bitcoin or Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if it's worth zero, I'll still use the protocol to run my stuff. I'll monetize it some other way.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I like the blockchain world, is because I have so much sovereignty as an individual with tech skills.
Exactly.
Not just me, anyone. I'm a proxy for the average ambitious tech nerd, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't like what's happening in this world, I can just build a new sandbox. Another mentor called that costless secession, as in I don't cause damage by leaving. I don't start a fuss on the way out. I kind of treat my personal life the same way. If like a friend or a partner disrespects me, I'm not going to start shit. I'm just going to be out. Like, once I know I'm done, I'm done. So, that's what we like to see in crypto, is like hard forks that are non-contentious. It's just two people going their separate ways.
Yeah.
It really mimics human behavior perfectly, as far as I can tell. And, and there have been a few tough times with certain games lately that have since resolved themselves well. But there was a time when I was like, shoo, what do I do if this goes down in flames? And I talked to my team, and I'm like, we hard fork it, and we do it ourselves. That's like nuclear last resort. But, it's better than having no last resort. And just the threat of a last resort prevents it from happening in general, kind of like nuclear standoffs. You kind of like the move serious in Axie, which a tournament player can explain. Standoff with who will spend or not spend their energy and steal it from the other one.
So did you end up doing any hard forks at that time?
No. We haven't had to do anywhere near anything that drastic. It's just been times where we saw an issue that could take something down, and we just needed to know we were hedged against it.
Okay.
So to loop back to the magic thing and put a capstone on that, I realized that I could make more money selling all the tools I built for my store to other people instead of running a damn store myself, which immediately clicked into Tim Ferriss's words, and I was like, okay. I watched the Facebook movie called
Social Network.
The Social Network, yeah. And I was like, I wasn't attracted to like the partying and the glory, but like that sense of uncovering this massive innovation that's existed potentially forever, but like that was the guy who figured it out. I was like, shit, that's what I live for. I live for that moment when I switch something on that's never here. You know what? Hold up. Everyone who's watching this needs to sign an NDA, okay? By watching this, you promise not to tell anybody on the internet.
Right.
Okay, no screenshots. I'll know. All right? This is the AR prototype.
Oh, man.
There it is.
Yep. We saw that.
Yeah, we saw that.
I wonder if the batteries are charged. Yeah, no one's seen this version, though. This is the new hardware.
Oh, I see.
Hey, there we go.
Blinding light for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, if since you brought it out, man, like, yeah, go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, talk about it. Explain what that is.
Well, I'll tease a little bit because I want to talk about it.
Okay.
It's demoable because it's impossible to explain, intuitive as soon as it's in your sight or in your hands.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm actually just going to tease it.
Yeah,
that's it. That's the whole unit. That can light up the side of a 2-story building at night.
Damn.
That can make an HD image the size of a small ball on your hand.
Right.
Anything in between. It's got a camera that can track objects, including trading cards in real life, trading cards on a giant projection screen, balls flying through the air, players on a sports team. And the camera and the projector are calibrated so that you can display anything you want on those things. There's no headset. There's no mounted cameras. You can use mounted cameras and projectors to create a more immersive experience. But what you just saw there, I'm not like untethered. I'm not like this is it.
Yeah.
You know, all these wires will actually disappear once I go to China and OEM this thing.
Sure.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Axie shout out, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So this got like basically it's got a phone kind of hardware, Raspberry Pi built in. So it's got like the accelerometer, so it knows which way you're tilting it.
Right.
The projector has something that calibrates the angle so that when you're like on like a wide angle shooting at a wall,
Yeah.
it's gonna be like this. It can auto correct itself to be like
Dude.
snap. Dude, yeah.
That's crazy.
I didn't even know the projector could do that until it did it, and I flipped out.
Yeah.
I was like, it's sorcery.
Yeah.
There's a wall.
Yeah.
The touch screen, everything. It's what AR needs to be.
Did you develop that on your own, or did you have work with another team?
No, this is just me, man. This is just something I couldn't get out of my head for the last 5 years.
Wow.
My business partners supported me in terms of like giving me a few ideas and kind of greenlighting using some company money to buy hardware because we could overlap with other projects. But like, no, man, this is my brainchild. This is my baby, and this is this is why I'm working for it all. This is what Axie is going to get me to. This is what NFTs is going to fund. If I make $1 million on Axie and if things go well, maybe I will. That $1 million is going into getting that thing OEM'd. I can take a bus to Shenzhen, China, and get this thing OEM'd tomorrow.
Right.
If I draw this back, if I have the capital. So
who would
that's the grand vision.
Your customers
playing
be?
Counter-Strike on the side of a building in a dark city.
Oh, hell yeah.
With 100 people holding these.
Hell yeah.
With projectors and cameras mounted like turrets. With giant projectors lighting up the side of skyscrapers. I mean, this is city-scale augmented reality we're talking about.
Yeah.
And this isn't 10 years away, man. This is like a year or less of hardware and software hacking with a team of 3 to 5 really good engineers. 6 months to 12, no, bullshit, 12 months.
Yeah.
For OEM prototype working, 4G built in, 5G built in, and you mass produce them and put them into the hands of 100 people in the same room, and all of a sudden you've got a brand new sport and a brand new industry.
Damn,
so this is what gets me going
reality.
in the morning is, yeah, man, I think we can pull it off. I really think we can do it. Esports is the perfect transition. So the magic thing kind of came to a close when, well, it opened up and then kind of came to a close when I turned all my physical inventory into cash and got paid to consult somebody to build their retail store, and then went full-time into teaching myself how to program because I only had kind of a basic intuition about it from my parents. But like going hard, building my first prototype for this software that would help Magic players get like massive liquidity on their collections that never existed before.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That kickstarted the whole wave of people who basically functioned as like intermediate middlemen between the average player who didn't know what was up and these huge multi-million-dollar vendors who need inventory.
Mm-hmm.
I did that for a while. Lots of people did. I wrote articles about how to do it for many years, etc. We altogether built an industry on a layer 2 kind of on top of Magic. All the while hearing about Ethereum, investing in the Ethereum presale. I will tell you my Ethereum presale story another time. But I watched Ethereum go to $1,000 and couldn't do a thing about it.
Oof.
And then watched it drop to 100 and couldn't do a thing about it. And then one day something very, very strange happened. We'll save that for next time. Needless to say, I have some of it now.
Okay, so there's a happy ending on that story then. It's not just...
Oh, yes. Well, I mean, that's why I can afford to do what I do with Axie.
Awesome.
The software company I started out of my Magic store has since sold $1 million worth of software to Magic players and stores, including the card scanner, enterprise-level data services, data aggregation, computer vision software, paywall content, paywall Discord, and few other Magic tools that don't really need to be named.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, it's a complete suite of tools for a CCG player to manage like all their everything. They get mass liquidity, they get the efficiency of scale multipliers by using process automation technology.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of when I realized that me and the people I work with, it's software is in our DNA and systems is in our DNA. Markets, that's in our DNA as well. And when I discovered crypto was reviving itself in 2017, like that summer, I went a little bit deeper. Still didn't have my Ethereum money, but I threw in a couple grand from selling the last of my Magic cards. That did really well, obviously, over the winter. Got me through some trying financial times as I relocated like 3 times within Asia in the span of like a year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized, oh crap, Bitcoin and Ethereum can bail me out of trouble. How do I build a business on this that's redundant against the software business that I run for Magic in case Magic has problems? How do I hedge against the physical using the digital? Which is a question that I think everyone should be asking right now.
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, software company still running, still growing. We have a machine potentially coming out soon with a partner that will sort Magic cards for you. It's a robot arm that does kind of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's powered by our image recognition technology. And hopefully we will be the exclusive sale partners for that sometime in Q3.
So okay, hold on. Can I stop you there? So it's basically
Sure.
It's like robotics that does sorting for the individual cards. Isn't that like a huge problem that Amazon's trying to figure out with their FBS system? Like,
but they have like different size.
Well, yeah,
products.
But is there any way this is applicable to that?
There's a reason that a competitor of that product just got funded by Y Combinator.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Like, this is like a major problem that even big mega corporations like Amazon.
We've been chasing the physical automation bug for 10 years.
Yeah.
But the hardware and the software hasn't been there until basically now.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to be on the cutting edge of all that stuff. And I also try not to think about how much I want Amazon to buy us out one day.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Yeah.
Jeff, if you're listening, coffee. I got some stuff you might be interested in. Let's talk space. Let's talk asteroid mining when I'm done with this AI.
Man, we just need to text Jeff.
I got some ideas. Pass it along forward. I'll tweet at him. I gave him a shout out on the cast.
Yeah.
You think I'm joking, but I'll do it, and he might respond.
Yeah.
I got the CEO of Binance to respond when I told him I got 400 milliseconds on his CAPTCHA, which I think is a world record.
Oh yeah.
He responded. got his attention.
Yeah.
That's all I'm trying to do.
That's awesome.
So all this led to me discovering crypto again, reinvesting, taught myself how to write an algorithmic trading bot using the same programming language I built my other tools in. The bot was really good. The algorithms were really, really clever, but my lack of experience showed because I couldn't figure out how to hedge against big downturns. Like it was arbitraging dollars per minute by a number of innovations I don't really want to share.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem was that as soon as there was a big like secular bear market or just a big crater on that asset,
mm-hmm.
the bot didn't know what to do and I'd get blown out. So the day's profits were erased in a second. And I realized like this is a zero-sum game. I hate zero-sum games. And there are people who will always be better at this, bigger, better funded, smarter, more of them than me.
Mm-hmm.
Good lessons here. Tons of tech I can reuse. So it sounds like I need to focus on more on NFTs. I knew what NFTs were, and as a Magic player, they were obvious, clearly the future.
Mm-hmm.
And when I realized I had to stop doing algo trading, that was like the natural extrapolation, the natural next step. So I did some research. The Axie guys hit me up on Twitter, and apparently Jiho, one of the founders, said that once he saw my background, he rallied the entire Twitter to spam me with articles. So of course I binge read them all in 2 hours, and 2 hours later bought my first team and was like, okay, this game is going places. Especially because they're introducing like the MMO element in a year or two with land gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
It's got a long chain of potential evolutions of the game. So I saw the game, and just every time I saw more, I doubled down, and now I'm all in. Like legitimately all my crypto is in NFTs right now.
Oh, wow.
Or money that is allocated for NFTs. I take some cash out when ETH rises to pay some bills, take some of the heat off of my other projects to pay me. I live cheap. So by the way, if anyone's thinking about relocating or doing a startup, Southeast Asia is the place to be. DM me if you want to know more, but I can't recommend this region enough for anyone, but especially a Westerner starting a company out here. It's just
why is that?
No better.
Tell me about why.
Cost of living is in the bottom third of the world, especially Hanoi. It's a modern first world city, honestly. 1.5 world. I can take taxis for like $2 mostly around my neighborhood. Food is really cheap and good. Weather is great. Right, it's the middle of winter right now, and I decided it's a bit chilly, so I closed my windows and turned on the heat.
Right.
It's like that. If you're from a winter climate. So yeah, I can live. I don't drink. I don't party. I don't have a lot of expenses except like tech stuff for my hobbies and work. Furnishing my apartment with cool plants and art, and my rent. I try to live simply but well on as little money as I can without killing my quality of life.
Right.
And this region lets me do that because costs are low, and by paying just a little bit more than the basic floor rates, you get I pay probably 30% more for my apartment than I should, but I get twice as much as I would get for 30% less. And considering I don't have many other expenses, it's obvious that I should pool my resources into that one thing.
Right.
It's almost like quadratic voting for personal finance, but I'm not going to nerd out too hard. I guess it's too late for that. But so yeah, then the Axie happened. You can breed Axies together. They have genes just like real animals. You breed them together, you get a semi-random offspring based on the parents. And I realized that there were two things I could do. I could automate the manual process of clicking which ones to breed and submitting all the MetaMask transactions. And I can automate the task of decision making. 2 decisions you need to make. How good is a given pair of 2 Axies? And how good is that pair compared to other potential pairs with either of those Axies? This algorithm broke my brain, broke my body, and broke my spirit for months. It was so freaking hard to get my head around. Just getting to the point where what I told you in 2 sentences was even a concept. But by reducing it down to those 2 like raw numbers is what I did. Just
quick
formulas
question.
Based on.
Question. So, how do you determine whether an Axie has good properties or not? Like, what about an Axie has like valid properties in terms of like scarcity or value or gameplay? Like, what is it about an Axie?
That was a perfect question, and I'll answer it with a visual when I can share my screen in a sec.
Yep. And
I'll answer it with an explanation. What makes an Axie good is subjective. What we care about is how good is it from a tournament point of view. Collectible Axies like Mystics are great, but you don't get Mystics you buy and hold. Same with aesthetic Axies that look cool. You don't really do anything with them.
Okay.
But tournament Axies, if you're like trying to be a pro esports player and you want to be an Axie champ, you get 3 Axies on a team, each of which have 4 potential attacks based on their body parts. That's 12 different moves you can have on 3 different Axies.
Okay.
Some of them require the moves to be paired. Like one says, when you combine this plant move with a water move, you get this bonus. They must be on the same monster. However, others say when you use 2 of these on separate monsters, same attack, like 2 bugs that have like antennas, when you play both of them at the same time, you get a bonus. So we had to account for that, and we had to account for a bunch of other factors to create a rating system. Now, the key in Axie is to get the exact 12 cards that you want in your quote deck, which means you have to have the exact right 3 Axies with those four-part combinations. Combinatorial math really, really, really sucks in terms of like getting your head around it and getting what you want. Mm-hmm. Because when you take 100 and something Axie parts across 4 different slots, across 3 different Axies, getting the exact combo you need is damn near impossible. We realized that from day one, that like there were specific combos that were going to be insane, which you'll probably see on our stream soon, that are like literally unbeatable if you play them correctly. Mm-hmm. But no one's playing them because they just don't have the Axies. It's like in Magic, if you said, okay, well, everyone should play with Black Lotus, but only 1,000 people can own them, which is basically the case. Mm-hmm. Well, that's why they banned Black Lotus in all tournaments, is because there's just no way for it to be egalitarian.
It's OP.
You can't even pay to play. Pay to play is fine, and as long as it's done correctly. But you can't force people to pay thousands of dollars for something that they can't. That doesn't even exist. So we realized very quickly we need to be able to breed these monsters in huge quantities. So I bought probably 1,500 off the marketplace, off of people in bulk deals of 100, all prices, all qualities, scattershot. I basically just became a market maker, which is kind of my playbook. I knew that if I had everything, I couldn't be wrong, and I don't think I would ever lose money on any Axie I sold. Now, that prophecy has come quite true because the floor of Axies has probably quadrupled since they made breeding changes last month. Very, very good change. They introduced the SLP currency, which I'll let other people talk about because there's plenty of good material. Short version is it's an Axie native ERC20 token that represents it's proof of work via play. You play Axie, you win, you get tokens. Those tokens can be used to buy more Axies, generally from people like me, evolve your Axies, breed your Axies, sell them for cash, sell the tokens for cash, not the Axies, or hold the tokens. So we're actually working on a staking model that takes their idea to the next level to fit our needs as a private e-commerce seller. And that actually should be, based on our private conversations, that should be its own episode, talking about like a new ERC standard and a tokenomics design around what we're doing.
Yeah.
I need to polish the document before I share it with the world.
No, absolutely.
So basically we realized that if we got 1,000 Axies was my math for going critical. Again, it's like building an engine. You need critical mass to kickstart the reaction. That's why when you turn the key in your car's engine, it makes a spark and starts the engine rotating, at which point fuel hits the engine, hits the spark, blows up, and takes that little tiny spin it gave it and starts spinning it like crazy. So that catalyst was the Axie breeding changes. Recently, that's what made the prices go up. But for us, the catalyst for getting the chain reaction started, 1,000 Axies, assuming you can breed them all exactly once. Now, some of them we couldn't breed at all. Some of them we could breed 7 times. Just depends on the Axie. But assuming you can just breed all 1,000 Axies once, you get 1,500 Axies. 10 days later, they're ready. They have enough. You've built back up enough experience to breed those 500 and probably the original 1,000 again. So that gives you 1,500 Axies breeding, which gives you another 750, which gives you 2,250 Axies. So now 10 days, 20 days, 30 days in, you're almost doubling your Axie count. When you're below 1,000, you don't get the leverage. And so I said, okay, I'm going to buy 1,000 Axies. That's the milestone. And from there, I'm going to keep buying, and I'm going to start breeding. Very quickly, breeding by hand became untenable. The decision-making space for how to combine those moves, intractable. Like, I'm built for this stuff. I have experience in this stuff. I don't know a lot of people who just know more about this than I do. And it broke me, man. Like, and I knew that would be a competitive advantage, is like all of our combined experience plus something that's so hard to replicate. And the good thing is we're basically going to give away the algorithm piece by piece by showing people what different Axies are rated as. We'll get to why and how they're rated in just a sec. I've got a visualization to show you.
Okay.
But right now, it's just innovation upon innovation to get Axies down to a single number that gives them a rating. So short version was we realized decision-making was a huge bottleneck. When you have 1,000 Axies, you're comparing Axie A to Axie, Axie 1 to Axie 2, 3, 4, 1,000. Comparing Axie 2 to 2, 3, 4, 1,000. As you get towards the end, you get overlap, and you discard overlap because A plus B is the same as B plus A. But then you still have to figure out what the optimal arrangement of those pairs is. Because let's say you have two Axies that can breed with two other Axies. AB, CD, AC, BD, BC, AD. Mm-hmm. I did the napkin math on this on the back of a barf bag on an airplane to try to get my brain around it. Right. The only reason I can rattle this off the top of my head, I'm not like some math genius. I like spent hours reducing all of this down to like shit I could get my head around. Mm-hmm. And that was like the main challenge, is just reducing the problems to like where a mortal human being can understand it. That's why I think the Axie guys are so genius, is they built a system that can emerge to be so complex without having a shitload of complexity initially built in. Mm-hmm. Right. Genetic algorithms are magical. People who want to nerd out should definitely Google genetic algorithms and guys like Stephen Wolfram. You'll learn so much. And like a lot of what I'm saying here, if it sounds like jargon to you, it will be less so once you've just read that, because there's just a few key concepts that are not necessarily intuitive to someone coming into this, that they just need to be taught very quickly, and they'll start thinking like this. And that's why Axie is beautiful, is because it teaches people a really advanced method of thinking, just like magic did, that will help them in other areas of their life. People are starting businesses based on what we taught them to do in magic. Mm-hmm. And now people are starting to start businesses based on what they're learning from us in Axie, the systems thinking, we try to coach and mentor people who aren't as experienced yet. And we try to learn from the people who are more experienced, and then just pass that down the chain, so to speak, literally and figuratively.
Sure.
So after we figured out that breeding was going to become a major revenue source, it cost about 50 cents to breed an Axie. We could sell them for at least $2. Now we could probably sell them for at least $5. However, they cost more to make. That's why we figured, let's breed them now while they're cheap, and we never know what will happen in the future. Mm-hmm. We went move by move, and did a matrix, which I can try to pull up on my screen.
So this engine, Ben, essentially, I'll be eventually, once this thing releases, I'll be able to take this engine, and with my, let's say I have 50 Axies that I've purchased over the past few months, I'll be able to submit these Axies into this engine, and the engine will be able to tell me, it's like, all right, out of your 50 Axies, you can breed them. This is how much it'll cost, and this is the resultant Axies that you'll get, and it'll essentially optimize what I could extract from these 50 Axies. Would that be correct?
That is correct.
Interesting.
And that is how we got to 8,000 Axies, actually.
Okay.
Or sorry, I got it. My personal Axie account is about 8,300 right now. About 5% of them are on my separate tournament account, and collectibles, which will never be traded or sold. Then the rest is just store stock that we sell from, borrow from, take from, whatever. Our esports team has full access to our library of 10,000 Axies to borrow indefinitely. Mm-hmm. We only ask in return that they win some freaking games for the team and document what they learn about the Axie they borrowed and contribute it to the wiki. Okay. Chief is a professional esports coach. His job is whipping a team into shape. I'm kind of like the Q. Is it M or Q? The James Bond guy who builds the cool gadgets and Bond gets all the glory. Mm. That's how our relationship is. I get the glory for being the tech guy.
Sure.
They jokingly call me Elon Stark, and I'm like, better than Tony Musk, dude.
Tony Musk.
Yeah, Tony Musk just has a ring to it that I don't really care for.
Yeah.
I think it just kind of stinks. So yeah. I passed on that. But yeah, so all this economic firepower gives us the ability to field the best possible esports team, which is the Pantheon group of gods. Then we also pool SLP from our various ways of harvesting it so that our tournament players can breed without grinding SLP. They can focus on what they're good at. They'll naturally win SLP by winning tournament games.
Okay.
But they'll also be able to tap our reserves so they never actually have to worry about it. Our policy in the company is focus, like make sure everyone can focus on what they're absolutely the best at, and make sure that who you get is like absolutely the best they can be at like their one thing.
I see.
So I'm a good player. I'm an above average CCG player just by function of 25 years of experience and a brain for logic. But like, I'm never going to be as good as these pro players because I don't have the temperament. I don't put in the time. I'm not as fascinated by the thrill of that kind of victory over another player as I am about the victory over, darkness and ignorance creating new technology that didn't exist before. That's what excites me. But I'm excited because my partner understands that about me. and I know that he's the one that wants to hoist the trophy and have the glory. I don't mind standing behind him, clapping gently, knowing that it was a team effort. While he feeds off of that glory of the pure victory of the first place. Right. Not so much me, which is perfect because he's going to deal with all the esports monkey business. I'll just make sure our economics work and that we have money and we have monsters and that I'm around to hang out and help with project managing all the tech stuff. We have a good little dev team going right now with some of the big Axie names behind the scenes and building excellent tech. So I figure let's let the esports pros win the games. I'll just, I'll win the markets.
Absolutely. Is an average Axie player, do they have like several Axies or do you think the typical player has like one or two Axies? Like how's the distribution like in the space?
If you don't have 3 Axies, you can't play. You need 3 to form a legal team. So there's a lot of accounts that have 3 Axies that have either been bought or been given away or won as a prize.
Okay.
So I see that a lot. Like I find an Axie I want to trade for, and it's on some no-name address with 2 other Axies, and I'm like, okay, someone who won this and forgot about it. Great. No way to contact them. Nothing. So I'd say I don't want to conjecture based on old graphs because the source I used broke when Axie changed their contract. But between myself, my partners, and colleagues, we probably own about 20% of all Axies in existence.
Oh wow!
I personally, there's about 140K. I own 8,300. So whatever the math is on that, I think it's like somewhere between like 5 and 10%, basically, depending on things. But I'd say most people have between. This is just completely out of air, like a couple teams, like between 2 to 4 teams, so like a dozen Axies, and like a couple hundred. Then I think you get like that parabolic graph where like people like me, not me, sorry, us, our business, the Axie official marketplace, like potentially some OpenSea contracts, enterprise level people who are holding like thousands. You've got some whale players that have like in the 3,000s and then multiple accounts. So, we say we're the single largest holder by address, but there may be people who hold more total Axies across multiple accounts. So,
okay.
Hey, it's credibility. We'll take it. We're still pretty happy with using all this automation to breed this many Axies. So the breeding thing really became real when we started getting close to Axie number 100,000. There was a whole fervor in chat to be the guy who bred Axie number 100,000. That's the kind of challenge that I like because that's a tech challenge.
Sure.
The way it works is as soon as you select which 2 Axies to breed together, you press a button, submit the transaction. As soon as the transaction clears the blockchain, the Axie is minted, its ID is set, and then the ID count is incremented by 1. So I realized what was going to happen was, A, the Axie website doesn't update in real time with the chain. Anyone who's looking at the Axie website will have no chance at this because 5 minutes is the difference between life or death here. Trade it. Second, everyone is going to be manually making their breeding decisions by hand, which will limit the number of breeds they can make no matter how many Axies they have. So my major competitors. Third, they're going to have to click submit on every MetaMask confirmation window, which, as anyone knows, if you're trying to submit like 10 transactions at once, you have to wait, spin for no freaking reason. Actually, I think I do know the reason, but it screwed me a few times. But I figured out how to mass submit MetaMask transactions with 2 lines of JavaScript. DM me if you want it.
Yeah.
The reason it's not an official feature is because it's too easy to do transaction injection. So it's like 1.1111 ETH, 100 ETH. Oh, mask confirmed, gone. But it's not. I'm in a secure kind of cordoned off environment here. I'm not worried about that attack.
Sure.
Because no one's going to know when I'm about to mass submit them all. So what basically ended up happening was once I realized people weren't going to be following on the Axie website because it's too slow, I realized I'll probably be looking at Etherscan, which is a little bit faster, but still not completely real time. The only real-time way to find out what Axies have been bred recently is to listen to the contract emitter, which is real-time. So we set up a WebSocket that would broadcast on a private Discord channel whenever an Axie was born and tell me its ID number. So I can see who is breeding it, at what rate. I got a sense of like the whole cadence of the market. starting around Axie 99,000, yeah, T minus 1,000 Axies.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, at that point, I think we're going to start to see a parabolic increase in Axie breeding. And there's going to be a mad rush of submit transactions at the end, which is going to clog the network. And then it's going to be a random race to see whose transaction clears before whose. So I wrote the algorithm to make all the pairs. I wrote the automation to sequence them in the right order. Wrote the automation to submit all the transactions to MetaMask at once. Wrote the automation to confirm all the transactions in MetaMask at once. Once we got to about Axie, and I set the gas above average so it would clear before anyone else's. So around Axie 99,000, I started testing it. It wasn't working the breeding was working fine, but like the timing of the trades wasn't right for some reason. So I tinkered around with it. I set the gas price really low so I would not blow out my bankroll while I was testing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot to set it back before the final run. So my gas in this critical time was like 1.1. If that.
Wow.
Don't realize it because I'm running on like pure adrenaline, 48 hours, no sleep at this point. Like I'm just watching like a hawk. I'm a crazy person. Okay, no normal person should do what I did.
Yeah.
All right, I stayed up late and like woke up early. I slept on the couch. Like just, it's not like I can't walk to my bedroom. It's in the other room. I still fell asleep on my couch because I'm an animal.
Yeah.
So I'm not thinking clearly. I'm making mistakes and I'm getting frustrated. So I say, you know what, YOLO. We hit Axie 99,500, and I fired off 800 breeds pretty much simultaneously, thinking by the time anyone else even notices what's happening, we'll be hundreds past the target because all my transactions will clear at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, done. There's no chance of someone injecting a breed in the middle of my batch this way.
Yep.
It's like the chances of that happening are basically physically impossible, even if you know when to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
Just sitting there, and like I'm getting tired just talking about it. My transactions don't go through.
Oh,
shit. My transactions don't go through. I check and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot to change the gas price on hundreds of transactions. I didn't know how to mass cancel them at this point, which is a thing that's actually very easy to do. Just clear your MetaMask history and it'll override every transaction that hasn't been confirmed yet.
Yeah.
But they didn't know that, and I probably wouldn't have thought of it if I did. Eventually, they started clearing. And that's when I saw the uptick of everyone, that parabolic increase of people firing off breeds to get there. And I was seeing that they were actually interrupting my transactions because they were submitted at the same time, but they weren't clearing fast enough. Mm-hmm. So there were just people punching holes in my wall over and over and over again. And I'm sitting here like, I have no more energy left. I'm like falling asleep. And I'm like, at the last minute, I screwed the pooch. I made the only mistake that could completely undermine this entire 3-month process of getting Axie 100,000 as a way to launch my breeding algorithm. All I could do was put on like some like Zen Japanese garden music and walk away as soon as the counter hit like 99,900. And I'm like, I'm just going to listen for the Discord sounds. And I literally sat in the corner meditating until I was sure that we'd passed. Looked over. Sometimes I'm like a little bit dyslexic, especially on small screens with lots of data when I'm 48 hours sleep deprived. And I saw Axie 100, what I thought was 100,000 to some other guy, and me with Axie 99,999 and 100,002.
Oh shit!
And I was like, well, at least I got 99,999. That's cool. And then I looked again, and I cleared the crap out of my eyes, and I was like, wait a minute. That guy got 100,001. I got 100,000 and 9999 and the first 100 of the 100,000s. So it was a huge, huge, massive victory. Everyone realized like how good our breeding algorithm was, and that's what kind of set the whole thing in chain motion. We started blowing out breeds left and right, just doubled our Axie count twice in the span of like 2 months. Mm-hmm. And then when they changed the breeding and they announced the new metagame, I'm trying to figure out how to share my screen.
Yeah, if you
there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Can you guys see this?
It's coming up. Yep, we see it.
Some like the Matrix kind of looking thing?
Yeah, it looks like the blue Matrix.
Yeah, no idea what I'm looking at.
You will.
Yeah.
Okay, so
This looks like some
this
kind of like
is
genetic mapping or something.
Does.
Right?
bingo. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. This is a visualization of how to breed a good Axie.
Yeah.
X-axis and Y-axis are the same parts in the same order, grouped by class and location. So bird mouth, bird back, bird horn, bird tail. Going down the left side and across on the top. So where each of the columns and rows meet, that's what these X's are, because you can't give a move a rating with itself. You could if you were talking about pairing it with another Axie with the same move, but I can't. I can't go there, man. If I try to do that right now, I'll fall apart. That's even more complicated, and I can't. So this also combines with a pure power rating of a given part. So like this bird mouth is a 5 out of 5 because its raw stats are good. And then this bird mouth combined with this bird tail is really good because they have this overlapping synergy or something. So what you're looking at here is the map of the overlapping synergy.
Okay.
Purples are really good. Reds are no-go or even -1s or penalties. Like if they have these, your Axie is actively worse together. Like defender moves with moves that give your opponent benefits when you get hit. No, that is a bad Axie that will probably never be good. Just sell it and get rid of it and never breed it. Excise it from the gene pool and be done.
Okay.
It's really sad when you realize you have to like cull your Axie gene pool to like make them superior. And like as a Jewish person, for real, that actually makes me like a little weirded out. But like I kind of have to because they're my internet monster babies. It's like kind of freaks me out, man. I'm doing like internet monster eugenics, but like it's okay. I love them all equally.
Right.
Some are just better than others.
Yeah.
Anyway. Once I got over my moral qualms about this, I'm going to try to zoom in here. Is this starting to get bigger?
Yes, it is.
Now, does this make more sense?
Oh shit.
Okay, so I see. Okay, yeah.
Talk through what you think you're seeing here, and
all right, so let's
we'll see how good we are at making it intuitive to someone who doesn't actually know what they're looking at yet.
Okay. Yeah, so let's look at line 26. It says we have a 30 attack, 40 defense, A rating number 2, S rating number 3, and then part is furball. So if we look across, I see a couple 5s. So yeah, so we have beast horn dual blade, that's a 5, and then a beast horn imp, that's a 5. And then the other 5 is Beast Mouth Confident. So I'm guessing that these 3 5s have like an individual Axie has a beast, a horn, and a dual blade. What is it? A move or is a type of Axie?
Yeah. So dual blade is a body part. The move that dual blade gives you. Let me back up for people who don't know Axies in detail. Axies have body parts. Axies are in teams of 3. The team of 3 Axies creates a deck of cards when you start the game. Your deck contains 2 of each card given by a certain body part. So in this case, furball. It does 30 damage, has 40 defense. 30 damage is like insanely low. But I've hidden this information for ease of use. But look here now, furball attacks 3 times. So it does 90 damage with 40 defense, which is a pretty balanced move. Good damage is like 120 plus. So 90 is pretty underpowered, but back moves in general aren't nearly as scary as the other moves. They tend to be more defensive and more techy, more combo-y, whereas your tails and mouths hit really hard, your horns can do really interesting things.
Okay.
Just as a basic guidance. So furball, it attacks 3 times. Now it comboed with, what was the first one? Dual blade. So dual blade gives you the card Sinister Strike. Furball gives you the card Juggle Walls. Not comfortable saying that out loud. dual blade, 50% damage increase when it critical strikes, which means chance to do double damage, and the chance of that happening is governed by the Axies morale stat. There's guides to this. You don't have to remember or take notes.
Okay.
Google it all on Axie Discord. They have like move guides that Jeff put together that are awesome. We'll be publishing some stuff also to support that from a sort of strategic analysis standpoint. So, okay, why is dual blade good with hero? Why is that a 5.0?
Mm-hmm.
2 reasons. 1, they're both beast moves, which means they add morale to the Axie. As I just said, added morale means higher chance to critical strike.
Okay.
Furball strikes 3 times. So that added percentage chance applies to each of the strikes. So you're getting a multiplier. The name of the game here is multipliers. Mm-hmm. Getting plus 5 damage isn't great, but getting plus what? That's probably double damage there. And each time you critical strike, I believe your dual blade gets another 50% damage.
Oh, damn.
And it's already doing 130, which is elite. That's why it's red.
Yeah.
So that's a great combo because it basically everything works together. The stats that they give you for being beast moves make it more likely for you to crit, and furball attacking multiple times gives you more chances to be more likely to crit. And when you crit, dual blade gets a huge damage multiplier. So this combo is sick. I actually haven't tested it yet. Others have, I'm sure. But then, for example, we could combine furball, the strike 3 times one,
mm-hmm.
with something that gives another Axie that poisons your opponent, because every strike of furball counts as an additional turn, which means each poison ticks an additional time per turn, which means if you have 3 poison stacks, each of them tick an additional time.
Mm-hmm.
That's how deep it goes with this, and that's why you need this matrix, is to get your eyes around it. Because when we scroll over, I'll show you that furball should have grass snake and yam, which are the 2 poison moves, or grass snake, yam, grass snake and yam are the 2 poison moves on tails. There's one on the back as well, but furball takes the back slot. As you can see, furball, grass snake here, 5. Grass snake gives poison, as does yam, which is a plant move.
Okay.
So that's what a 5 looks like. Moves that just have like insane synergy. Imp was the other one. Imp, you gain energy when any Axie on your team hits a critical strike. Now, forget the other Axies on your team just for a moment, because that, again, really complicates things. Your furball and imp both give you more morale, which make you more likely to critical strike. Furball gives you more opportunities to be more likely to critical strike, and every opportunity to critical strike is a chance to get an extra energy with imp. Now, in Axie, getting 1 extra energy is like huge.
Mm-hmm.
You start the game with 3, you get 2 more every turn.
Mm-hmm.
You generally want to maximize your usage of your energy, not necessarily in terms of spending it, like immediately, but when you spend it, getting the most value. There are cards that steal energy from your opponent, so stockpiling energy has its risks.
Okay.
But so, okay, for example, yeah, so that's why imp is insane. It's one of the only moves that can generate multiple energy pretty easily. Others rely on what your opponent do, like hitting you to break your shield to give you energy. But imp, all you have to do is smash your opponent, and any one time you smash your opponent extra hard, you get an extra energy. So that's basically 50% more energy per trigger per turn than you would normally get. Okay. That's what a 5-star combo looks like.
So all of these descriptive traits and moves and abilities, these are all set in stone, and the only variation is obviously the breeding of the Axies, right? Like, will there never be
there's no modifiers. There's no like modifiers on the moves or parts themselves yet.
Yeah.
Like if you have dual blade, you have dual blade. You don't have like dual blade of strength, which gets plus 10 damage. Like a move is a move is a move, is a card is a card is a card. The way you get diversity is which cards you include, whether you put them on the same monster or 2 different monsters. And I believe they're going to be adding like item cards in the future too that give you kind of like a generic spell casting ability rather than tying your actions to the 3 Axies.
Mm-hmm.
But I can't say for sure because I'm not the one making the decisions because I'm not on the official team.
Yeah.
If I was making the decisions, hell yeah, of course, that would be great. And I think that's where they're going to.
So then on top of this, so we're talking about individual Axies. I'm assuming that, let's say your Axie gets a critical strike, but that particular Axie provides an additional +1 energy on your other Axies, right? Or has some kind of multiplier effect for your team.
Right. So your energy is yours, and you can use it for any Axie on your team you want. So they don't have their own energy.
Oh, okay.
Imp just checks. And if you play Imp, anytime during that round, critical strike from any Axie gives you an energy. So since it's not shared across Axies, it literally doesn't matter which one critical strikes. Obviously, you want to critical strike with bigger damage moves because then your multiplier gets bigger. But not, Furball is the exception to that rule because you get multiple triggers. There's only, I think, 2 or 3 moves in the game that have multiple triggers. There are moves that do double damage when comboed, but Twin Tail is the only other one besides Nutcracker that strikes twice. So there's an archetype there where you do strike multiple times, increase your crit chance, kind of like a rogue in World of Warcraft. And different species of Axies, like the birds and the beasts and stuff, have different kind of base stats. So for an Axie like this, either a fast bird to get out ahead of your opponent and just assassinate them with a low chance of critical strike, or you could use one of the mech class Axie, which is a really rare one, that has a really, really high skill rating, which means when it combos, it gets a bonus damage per action, higher bonus damage. So then which species you pick has a huge effect on what that Axie can do. You wouldn't put like an assassin rogue on a plant species because plants are meant to be defenders and like healers and supporters.
Sure.
They're slow, they have tons of HP, they can they can tank a big boss fight, or they can be like a druid in World of Warcraft and hang back and off tank and heal. You can even go damage style with them and play offensively, but you're still never going to be playing a bird strategy when you're playing with a plant because it just will never have the raw speed of a bird.
Right.
So hopefully I didn't go too deep down the rabbit hole there, but that's the complexity of Axie, which makes it so much fun.
So a lot of this, all these like the individual Axies, all this ability by the Axies, they come from the company, right? All you're doing is you're taking the different permutations of the Axies and you're just optimizing which Axie would be best for a team versus like you have the other side of Axies where you might have a mythic Axie, but it may not necessarily be the best at the actual game itself. It's better to hodl that Axie than to use it for a game, right?
That's right.
Okay.
Mystic Axies are okay. If you have a Mystic Axie with really good parts, like all 4 parts fit its role, like they're all defender parts or they're all attacker parts, and those parts are pretty good, at least average or above, then that Mystic Axie will be baseline playable to any Axie player for any reason. The level 4 parts, which are unique to Mystic Axies, will be parts that they can evolve over time. They haven't released level 2 parts yet, but I'm told that they're very, very close to finishing them, pending the balance of the existing level 1 parts. So they'll evolve, they'll get more cool looking, they'll get more powerful, they'll do different things, they can branch off. But normal Axies will stop at level 3 parts, whereas Mystics have a level 4 legendary part. Those are going to have super unique animations and do super powerful things. So they're probably going to be insane in PvP, if not cool for showing off. And there will probably be a need for certain Mystic moves in like high late game WoW style PvE, which is probably at least a year or 2 away.
Interesting.
Then as far as the Axie team are the ones who make all them decisions about all the gameplay stuff, all the art. That's all them. No community. Like they can take community input pretty well, but we don't design the moves. They do. However, we could because it's blockchain. We could fork the protocol.
Sure.
Clone all the Axies, and we can build whatever we want on top of it. And we can do that in partnership with them, or we can do that adversarially against them. And when I say we, I mean the theoretical we, not like me and my company.
Sure.
Talking Thought Experiment, thinking adversarially, like what attack surfaces does that decision expose? Like allowing people to fork your chain because it's blockchain. Like, well, how can someone screw you by doing that to you? And then for me, how can I do that for my own game without screwing someone? Just thought experiments to help people who maybe aren't that familiar with blockchain realize that it's more about these kinds of game theories or these incentives and these alignments.
Yeah,
rather
it's essentially
than like a Bitcoin hodl, wait for it to go up.
Yeah, we could fork the Bitcoin blockchain, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're all billionaires, right? Like, you know, it really depends on like what you want to do with that forked blockchain that may elicit its own community, and there's a likely chance that you're not going to get a community if you just fork a blockchain.
Depends. What about Bitcoin Cash?
Oh yeah, well that's the point.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if the community is not there, then it's worthless.
It's worthless, correct.
If it's worthwhile, the community would be there.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right.
You know, that's actual like capitalist democracy, capitalist decentralized democracy, I guess.
Right.
I'm not like a big like macroeconomics type guy. I do believe strongly that decentralization is important in most cases. But I'll leave that heavy duty work to the real economists.
Yeah, for sure. So when do you think this engine is going to be ready?
The breeding engine?
Yeah, the breeding engine.
I mean, it's ready right now. I used it to breed.
Well, for public use.
That's a good question because we're not really sure. There's a conflict of interest internally here because we all want to do the right thing and help people breed more Axies, but it's also our competitive advantage above and beyond anything else. So we're trying to figure out how to align incentives so that people who breed with it are helping us in some way. And this is where that tokenomics design comes in that we were talking about.
That's right.
Earlier today, in the white paper draft I sent you.
That's right.
We think we know how to do this as like a guild kind of venture, where if you want to be a part of this, you have to opt in, you have to pass a screening so that there's some basic level of trust and validation, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get access to rights such as like borrowing Axies or any of the other things we just discussed. Like you want to use a reading algorithm, fine, but like in the most unselfish, benevolent way possible, what's in it for us? If there's nothing in it for us, then we can't keep the engine going to help more people. And it doesn't have to be, we don't need to be paid for it. We'll make tons of money from our Axies sales. It's fine. We have plenty. What we really need is like more good people, more diversity of stock. So maybe you trade us some Axies at favorable rates or sell us Axies at a discount so that we give you access to the tool. We want to govern access to these tools with NFTs, not gaming NFTs, but permission NFTs. So think of them like blockchain coupons. If you hold a founder token as an NFT or as a Axie.gg, or eventually it's going to be NFT.gg. I registered it for when we expand beyond Axie. Right now we're pure Axie though. You get a token based on, if you bought into a pre-sale or if you met certain criteria. It's arbitrary, whatever it is. We'll probably do a pre-sale, but I'll explain why it's not sort of pump and dump ICO in a minute. Or sorry, not in a minute. We're going to say that for the next episode.
Quick question for Axie.gg. How much is Axie.gg the engine itself, or is it the entire tokenomics guild? Like, what part of Axie.gg is like what we've seen already?
I'm not sure what people haven't seen, honestly, but most of it is stuff that we've talked about, but you haven't seen. It encompasses all things Axie that I and my partners are doing, basically.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's the overall venture. The breeding algorithm is kind of what put us on the map and put us in an economic position to win, because when you breed Axies for 0.003 ETH and then you're flipping them for 0.03 ETH, it's not hard to. It doesn't take a genius to make money flipping things for 10 times once you got them. So the way we see it is we have specific needs for our gene pool. If people want to use our algorithm, then we want them to breed to help us. Even if they don't give us the Axies they breed or sell us the Axies, we're thinking of like a credit system using the NFTs I was about to describe, so that you use our algorithm to breed X Axies, and then we build up, there's X credits. on your balance. And then we work out a deal with the individual seller to redeem those credits towards like, hey, we'll pay the SLP for our share of this breed. Let's breed this Axie twice and share the eggs or something like that. So instead of paying them for the breed, I can also like cover their costs. And by just holding a token in their account, that gives them a certain right, which is the right to sell breeds to us maybe at a markup, because perhaps they fronted us cash to buy that token, a discount token, just like a staking token almost, but in reverse. You get the discount when you spend the token.
Sure.
So then you can do permissions in terms of tokens that let you get access to Discord, tokens that give you access to discounts in the retail store, tokens that give you access to tools that the average user doesn't have, tokens that give you votes in governance issues. And I cover a lot of this in the white paper, but we'll leave it at that. But tokenizing the rights of a user with NFTs also lets you tie those rights in with other NFTs. So for example, I sell you a team of Axies. I can include an NFT that's on our own specific contract that says if you hold this token in your wallet and you hold these 3 Axies along with it, you get this reward. So we can bind the utility token to the team to ensure they stay on the same address. Therefore, if you sell the team but not the token does nothing. And when you do go to sell the team, you have every incentive to send the token with it.
Sure.
You can do that. Not that that's a good model, but we're exploring all these different ways to use permission NFTs to pair with gaming NFTs. Another one, for example, in Axie Land. For anyone who's listening that knows Decentraland, then you're going to know exactly what's up. Same kind of map, everything. We thought about a situation where someone like us owns a plot of land. Like, let's say it's like a Genesis plot or something like that. And on that Genesis plot live our 3 fully leveled up badass Mystic Axies. That is like a final boss level PvP team. What we can do is we can bind those Axies to that land with a contract that gives them value when they're paired together. And then we can challenge people to come walk onto our land to fight our Axies in battle. Walking onto our land gives us revenue as a landowner. That's part of Axie's token model. Someone walks on your land for any reason, you get money. It's ultimate capitalist, venom-sucking, vampire, rent-seeking model I've ever seen, but damn, it works for me. So then people come on you. It doesn't like cost the player much, if anything. It just kind of gets generated, I think. But then the player comes on your land. They have a permission token that allows them onto your land. If they don't have the token, they can't come onto your land, period. Then they come onto your land, and that's the only way they can challenge your god team. And if they beat your god team, then they get a reward, which you put into a contract that automatically accepts the team challenge and resolves all of it's basically wagering by wagering plus like making it into a fun experience by using land. That second space kind of concept.
So I have a question on breeding itself.
And just add on, there's also like another incentive, right, to kind of like claim territory on the land, because it generates you more income the more territory you own, and the more Axies that are kind of, you want your strong Axies to kind of guard your land, right? That way it kind of like safeguards your income stream, I guess. Is that how it works?
So you don't necessarily have to defend against other players messing with you. Like, it's a pretty cooperative game. Okay. But the PvE, there's going to be lots of world PvE where you can encounter different monsters of different strengths. The higher level the land is, the more valuable the monster's drops are. So there's items that you put on your land to spruce them up and make them look cool that also give you passive benefits. So for example, I got some of the really rare ones that give you extra Luna, the Axie native token, when Axies travel over your land. So I try to buy as many. I have 600 plus parcels of Axie land right now. I'll pull it up on the screen. So I'm actually pretty proud of what I've built.
So going back to breeding a second, how do you, when they breed, do you automatically know what the output is with this engine, or is it like a random roll when you breed?
It's a random roll within certain parameters. The Axie genome has 6 slots: eyes, ears, mouth, back, horn, tail. And each slot has 3 genes: a dominant, a recessive, and a super recessive.
Okay.
When you breed 2 Axies together, the dominants each add a 37.5% chance to the outcome pool.
Oh, okay.
So about 75% chance to get the dominant part.
Mm-hmm.
Then the remainder is divided at a 3-to-1 ratio between between submissive and super sub. The genes are, it's like probably like a 3-to-1 to, it's like a 3-to-1 ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Now in the algorithm, we actually overweight the sub genes because we're going for lottery tickets here. So if I see an Axie with a bunch of crap dominant parts, but its backup genes are all good, the algorithm will find that and score that appropriately and say, hey, this is a lottery ticket breed. Like, if your most likely case scenario, the Axie that's most probable to come out is going to suck.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not deterministic. You don't get the same thing every time. And the combination space is big enough that if you repeat the experiment a million times using like a Monte Carlo method,
mm-hmm.
which is just Monte Carlo is just simulate the same thing a bunch of times and see how it all averages out.
Mm-hmm.
I did that. I tried to do a breeding simulator, and it was just like, it got me nowhere because the combinatorial space is so freaking huge. So with breeding, you're playing the probabilities and you're trying to breed towards purity. The more pure an Axie is, for example, it's got the same gene for its mouth in Dom 1, Sub 1, Sub 2. That's a pure Axie for that move. So if you breed that with another Axie with that same thing, you're going to get that result. The only reason it's random is because your genes are random. Players are currently breeding very, very, very close to deterministic Axies. And by deterministic, I mean, you know that input equals output every time, same time. Right now, it's semi-deterministic because there's only a certain scope of possible outcomes because of what genes are even available. But once you have perfect genes, then you literally have a factory for producing the exact same Axie over and over and over and over and over again, because all the children will be exactly the same as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So as far as breeding is concerned, you're playing the math with the parents and you're working to breed down to get less and less variance. Like I got destroyed by the RNG yesterday when I opened a special breed. Every possible part that I needed to hit, I missed. But it's fine because 2 of my others beat the odds and got awesome stuff. Stuff that's probably more important to me in the long run. Just hurt my pride, to see the RNG just stuff me so bad.
Yeah.
So, that's also why we bred at mass scale, is because the only way you even out RNG is at scale. Just like buying 1 chest versus 100 chests. Like 1 chest, you might hit the lottery or you might get garbage. But if you buy 100 chests, that's going to even out. Same with poker. You play enough hands, you get bad beat a few times, but 9 out of 10 times you don't get bad beat. Same principle here with trading. You breeding, trading. It's like sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Just win more often and win a little bit bigger, and you're fine.
Show us this map here.
This map is my Axie holdings of my land.
Okay.
About 40 of these are my teammates, but the rest are currently mine. The 2 that I'm most interested in are these 200 plus Savannah squares. Savannah is the lowest tier of land. They were 0.05 chests in the pre-sale. Now the floor is about 2 to 3 times that, with good ones going for 4 times that or more. In general, in these CCGs, the cheapest chests tend to sell out the fastest because people can buy huge quantities at once. And that's what these 2 came from. I bought these OTC from other Axie players. And they're unique because the only way to get a square like that was to buy 100 chests at the same time. So there's only a few Axie chests left right now, and they're all in this white region, the Arctic here.
Okay.
Pink are resource nodes, which is where PvE is going to happen. Monsters will spawn there and then kind of radiate out from there. If monsters are on your land, then or resources also, like wood and stone, all those kinds of typical RPG resources, those will also spawn. You got 24 hours first crack to harvest and kill whatever's on your land, then it's open season. But if it's open season and people come on your land, remember, you still get paid. So land is this kind of ultimate passive income mechanism that generates Luna, which is Axie's native token. Luna itself is also a passive income vehicle because Luna is a stake. The staking Luna basically disperses the fees and the rewards generated on the Luna marketplaces. So it's a proof of play plus a staking token at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've built up a situation where I'm pretty diverse. I have this big Mystic plot down here. It doesn't look like much, but this is a huge Mystic resource node, which means the stuff that spawns here is going to be elite. It's 18 plots together. This little missing one here is killing my soul, like seriously killing me. And like, what is this? I don't need this. Can we just trade? Please? No, we don't even know who owns this piece. But anyway, each of these is probably about 1 ETH a piece on their own. Together, I'd probably say each plot's worth about 1.5 ETH each. So this tiny little thing was a major investment for me, but it's something that I don't anticipate ever getting rid of. Sprinkled all around here are single parcels, which are near resource nodes. You can see that these are the only Savannah squares with resource nodes, except for this one. And currently, the Axie map is only available from the Luna's Landing, the big red square, to the left. So nothing. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, nothing. Everything from here is the Q1 sale. They'll be releasing this one later, probably this year, once things have advanced more and they've released land gameplay. And they're reserving these two quadrants for the indeterminate future. They're smart guys and they know how not to tank the price of land. And they know that if they release the Q2 sale too early, they screw a lot of their biggest early backers. I'm talking guys way bigger than me. I own a lot of land, but I don't own the expensive stuff. There's guys that own hundreds of these purple mystic parcels. You know, that's 6 figures fiat, easy. So I mean,
is that because they anticipate like more traffic to those areas because they're rare creatures and rare items to be earned there? That's like that's how the value.
Higher the tier.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you're dead on. That's how the value is derived.
Okay.
The closer you are to the center of the map, the more you can do like world bosses and events. Because the farther you are from the center, the longer it takes to get there and get back again.
How many parcels
you
total
teleport
is
where
it?
you're going, and you have a cooldown to kind of walk back. So my Mystic node there, my giant plot, I can walk right to Luna's Landing to do whatever and walk right back. I can walk to the Genesis land. I can walk to my own node is right there. I can farm the hell out of that one node. And all my best Axies are going to live there unless I get something even better. So what's going to spawn there are higher level monsters that drop higher level loot. And by being closer to Luna's Landing and a bunch of other really big resource nodes, my cooldown for harvesting nodes and going to other places on the map is going to be extremely short. Now, look on the top left at my twin towers there. They're good for farming just those 2 really big nodes, but there's going to be a lot of competition for those really big nodes. That's why I'm buying the crap out of all the parcels in that area, so I don't have any competition. The market's small enough that big players can corner entire markets. In this case, literally, I am buying corners. I am cornering the cornering market.
Right.
So this means I'll be able to build bigger buildings too. Certain buildings are going to require a big square to build, like 50 by 50 or something crazy like that. That math doesn't make sense. Anyway, these 2 twin towers here are going to be one of the very few places on the entire map that anyone can build a max size building. And I obviously intend to fill out those 2 orange squares and the green one to the best of my ability. So I'm thinking is long term, the land is going to be my passive income vehicle. I can rent out Axies to players who want to play. They can farm resources on my land to give me a cut. And it really is just kind of like building a factory operation. It's the assembly line where I bring in employees to do rote tasks with predictable, deterministic outcomes. And then the underlying assets value will increase proportionally with, well, maybe more than proportionally, potentially even exponentially with the underlying value of the passive income vehicle. Especially if we at Axie GG have put like an L3 vehicle on top of that land by using our NFT arrays to give special rights.
Interesting.
That hole goes real deep, my friends.
Yeah, no, we're processing here because this looks a lot like the Decentraland map.
Yeah, it does.
And what I'm realizing,
I think they consulted on it.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense.
What was that?
They consulted on it.
Oh, okay.
Well, what I'm realizing, I think Iman is realizing, is like it's sort of like Decentraland, but like if you look at the Decentraland map, there isn't anything that spawns. Like Decentraland completely depends on the community to build stuff on their parcel, and if nobody builds anything, you're gonna spawn in Decentraland. You're not gonna see anything.
Yeah.
Other than like green grass.
What do you do in Decentraland? Just like a hangout space, or is there like an objective? Are there any objectives like achievements, awards, quests, events, or is it just like the crypto kind of situation where it's just a cool thing that has cool mechanics that you can play around in?
There's
and no disrespect to either of those games.
No, for sure.
That's a valid.
No, that's a valid question. So I would say that there are no quests. There are events, but there are community-driven events. Like, let's say, so we deployed a couple of like games in Decentraland. One is called Block Runner, another one's called Pack Runner. And what they're designed to do is to provide passive income to anybody who deploys this game on their land. So let's say you are a landowner in Decentraland. You go to our application called metazone.io, and think of metazone.io as an app store for Decentraland. So you go on there, you see some games like the ones that we created, like Block Runner. You basically you purchase that and you deploy that game on your land. And then all you do is shill your land to say, hey, players who play this game on my land, can earn mana in Decentraland. And when they earn mana, you earn mana, right, when they play. And so the point here is that the developers really, it's the burden is on them to build games that attract players to come in. And it's pretty cool. Decentraland is cool in the sense that all you need is a browser. You need a link. So I could send you a link to Decentraland, and that will just spawn you on my parcel. And then from there, you'll be able to play a game or walk wherever you want to go.
It's basically
that is great UX.
It's basically an open sandbox for developers to create whatever they want.
And it's all browser-based. So all you need is a MetaMask, and you jump in. Go ahead.
Now I understand a little bit better now. What I never understood about Decentraland is like, what's the point other than just chilling?
Sure.
Like I said, I spent half my time as a pro WoW player just shooting the breeze in guild chat about nonsense.
Sure.
Running on the auction house.
With people. My second space was like half as fun as the game. Same with Axie, honestly, until I started going business on this.
Yeah.
It was my second space where I was just chilling. Like my business partner that I met through Axie, who I've never got to hang out with even in real life, is moving to Vietnam in the next 2 months.
Oh,
with his girlfriend and his dog. So we can share an office and do a startup together. And so he can lower his cost of living and avoid the German winters and avoid the inevitable collapse of the Western Empire or whatever his reasons are. Right?
Yeah.
Learn not to ask too many questions. So my thought here is, okay, DCL has the platform that Axie lacks, which is a navigable map. Based on what Chung said, it's going to be... Chung is the CEO of Axie. He's a genius monster from outer space. I've never seen anything like it. And I hang out with a lot of smart people. Like, he's... Wow. The guy's got a GPU for a brain. It's amazing. He's part of the reason that these concepts in this game are already so fleshed out to the nth degree. He just saw what everyone else was doing wrong.
Yeah, that's what I'm realizing.
It's like, okay, slam this all into Axie. CryptoKitties, Decentraland. Jeff is big into DeFi, so he's looking at all these different protocols and partnerships with MakerDAO. So what I'm seeing here is I'm looking at this Axie map where I don't even know. This is tens of thousands of dollars of Axie land, I guess. I don't know what it is at this point. But I can't do anything with it for at least another 6 months because land gameplay is just not the highest priority for them right now, or should it be. But I'm not getting any rewards for holding these. I think that's partially by design, though, because they don't want to give the OGs too big of an early advantage on passive income. Obviously, I'm biased. I want it. But, I'm in this for the long haul. I can wait.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
I think it would be very, 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 very easy to render the Axie map layout with the Decentraland engine. I don't know if that stuff is open source or closed source.
Decentraland,
something that the team did.
They're launching in February 20th. So, and they're apparently decentralizing everything. So everything's going to be open source according to the definition of decentralization, right? So that's a potential situation for Axie too. One question I do have, we were watching another YouTube video on Axie and MakerDAO. How is MakerDAO playing a role in Axie?
They've been sponsoring Axie. They sponsored the last tournament.
Okay.
With I think 2,000 DAI. Somebody 2 nights ago went home with 1,000 DAI and a bunch of Luna for taking down the tournament. It was not me. I lost a heartbreaker of a match to finish just out of the money, but I can't complain. I didn't practice. So
is anybody streaming this? Is anybody streaming Axies right now?
People are definitely streaming Axies, and it's about to get much more serious now that the first tournament has passed.
Yeah,
we're going to be streaming. Like I said, I'm building a streaming studio right now. A lot of the esports guys are going to start to stream now that the first tournament has passed. I think you're going to see Axie become one of those popular streams because it's so easy to follow and so accessible to the mainstream. Like my mom doesn't want to watch Enforcer J play Apex and blow people's brains out with giant dinosaurs and jetpacks. I like that stuff, and my mom don't. But I showed my mom my Axie collection, and when she was done laughing and wiping the tears out of her eyes from some of the monsters that she saw, she was like, "How do you have 8,000 of these?" I'm like, "Because I'm your son, Mom, and I'm my dad's son too." She's like, "These look like the cartoons I draw when I'm bored." I'm gonna get my mom playing Axie one day. So she's a dev, so she'll know what's up.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I can't help but thinking here, like, okay, you render this map in with the Decentraland engine. Nothing fancy, just use whatever graphics or tech they have to represent it. There's, Axie will be coming out with a SDK soon that'll have a lot of art that could be used. But for now, just as a proof of concept, I'd love to see somebody just animate Axies in 3D and Decentraland. Just as like the first thing. We started tinkering with that in Unity, but it's outside of our skill set, too far for us to really go any further. But I can't imagine that it's hard to turn the 2D Axie skeleton into a 3D one. Just have a little hovering around there.
Yeah.
Could be the start of a beautiful partnership and might make it really interesting to run Axieland on DCL.
Dude, that would be interesting.
It's taking a lot of work to 3Dify the Axies to the point where it's like commercializable, but just as like a sandbox proof of concept, just for the YOLO funsies walls.
Yeah. Well, I would imagine, like, you remember in the original Doom game, you were playing a 3D game, but all the assets were 2D sprites. So you might be you could.
I grew up on that game.
Yeah, you could do that in Axie Land. Just use 2D sprites for now. I mean, you get the gameplay in there, and then you'll be able to traverse the land without too much of a hassle.
That's that's basically what we were thinking, because mapping them to 3D parts would be very, very difficult.
It would
be. A little bit of the right lighting effects and shading.
Yeah.
Some clever tricks of the eye. I don't know. I'm gonna think about it though, because I'm really bored of not being able to like hang out with my Axies.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I want to put like my 3 Axies on my cool land and just like, lay back, smoke a cigarette, see what they're up to, watch them bounce around and fight shit.
I think there is an Axie and DCL sort of like integration at some point. I thought I saw that.
I've heard that for sure.
Yeah, so Axie's probably going to build some 3D versions of their Axies, and maybe you'll be able to deploy. Yeah, you'll be able to deploy your Axie in Decentraland. At least you're not going to be able to play the game in Decentraland. At least not yet. They might, eventually.
Well,
get that
the game doesn't need to be embedded in the DCL. The game just needs a portal because it launches. Like, it's not a world PvP kind of game. Like, it's like Final Fantasy when you encounter an item, a monster in the world. It begins its own little atomic encounter.
For
where
sure.
You do the battle, then it's over. And to do that, all you need to do is tap into the Axie battle system to dummy an API call to send a challenge. I'm not sure how to do that, but I can't imagine it's hard, and I'm sure they'll want to support it. Because then you come to my land, you click on my my sign that says "Fight me for 1 ETH," bounty or some craziness like that.
Yeah.
And then the contract triggers the
battle system
and the notifications and all that.
Yeah.
I'm just amazed by like how deep the rabbit hole goes on all of this stuff. And I'm the kind of guy that likes to take things to their nth degree extrapolation and like thought experiment. Like, well, what would it be like if the universe ended in 10 billion years? Just to keep myself thinking differently and innovating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Iman thinks we got 100 years left.
Not me. Stephen Hawking.
Who knows?
Stephen Hawking. There you go.
I definitely.
The sun. We got like billions of years till a few billion years till the sun goes out. That's all I'm worried about. Anything else, we can pretty much survive.
Yeah, that's what
sun
I'm
going
thinking.
out, no coming back from that unless you go to a different solar system. Anyway, I'll let Bezos talk about that when he's on the cast and stuff.
Yeah, I know, right? All right. Well,
to bring it back to like being able to navigate the map with your Axie NFTs, but also like maybe my Kingdoms Beyond legendary heroes too, standing next to my Axies in my DCL copy of like my land holdings.
That brings up a good question. Are you into other NFTs other than Axies?
Yeah, I'm actually really, really heavy into Kingdoms Beyond.
Okay.
I invested a lot into that. I really love them. They're a Canadian team out of a lot of them are University of Waterloo grads, which is a really, really good engineering school. And they're doing all the right things right now. They're basically making, I would call it the blockchainified Final Fantasy. It's got that vibe to it. It reminds me of those 90s JRPGs. Mm-hmm. They're continually improving the graphics. Right now, they're in like Doom sprite mode. It's always going to be 2D, as far as I can tell, but it's in like 2D Doom sprite mode for the entire game.
Yeah.
So it's kind of ugly, but you can kind of like, they're like, yes, it is ugly. You can see where we're going with this. Cut us some slack. That game is really solid. They have a really good bent on play to earn. They're I forget how they do the tokenomics. It's worth reading their white paper, but the short version is all the heroes that you buy, which are like your Axies basically. Mm-hmm. They are, how do I explain this? They have a thing called ETH backing, and what that means is as you play the hero, they get stronger, of course, in the game, but they also fill up a status bar, the status bar measures how much ETH you can reclaim from this hero by burning the token. So dusting it, like in Hearthstone. So, for example, I paid somebody to level up my legendary heroes to level 20 and get them fully backed. So at any time, I could cash them out for their ETH backing amount. Gameplay-wise, they're worth more than their ETH backing amount, but it basically sets yourself up as the buyer of last resort for your item, so you always have non-zero liquidity on it. Mm-hmm. As soon as I read that, I thought that was insanely innovative, and I shoved a big chunk of capital into that game. I've played it a few times. It's fun. It's not like my kind of game, but it used to be, so I know how to evaluate it. But Axie is now like what I want to be playing. I tinkered with Gods Unchained, bought a bunch of chests in the pre-sale. Was planning on holding them, but something about the game just doesn't resonate with me, and I flipped them mostly for a profit. I still have like one super rare card that I'm trying to get like 2 or 3 ETH for, but other than that, I divested from that game. I haven't touched Crypto Space Commanders. The only CSC investment I made was to buy the domain csc.gg, which someone has already tried to buy off of me, and I said no. But it looks like a really cool game. They have a really cool innovation called the Proxima Station, which is a player-owned space station there will never be another player-owned space station, so they say. And you can own shares of it for, again, passive income. One of the big Axie whales owns like at least half of it or more and kind of runs the whole show.
How do you handle taxes on all these purchases for NFTs? Does that play a role in like your decision making?
What was the first word you said in that question?
How do you handle like taxes when purchasing these assets?
I'm honestly not sure yet because we just started doing this.
Oh, okay. All right.
There's a lot of questions that we're trying to suss out right now. I mean, I like running legit businesses. I don't like paying taxes, but I like not going to jail or whatever. So the tax legislation on crypto is still really, really fuzzy.
Oh, especially on NFTs. Yeah.
Right. There's zero on NFTs, but in terms of like ethically, the way I see it is until that money hits the fiat system, they don't recognize it as money.
Yeah.
Or else I could pay my taxes in ETH. If you want to tax ETH, take ETH for taxes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's fair. So if I realize a gain into my fiat bank account, then that should be normal taxable income. Obviously, a smart business retains as much income and reinvests it to avoid that problem.
That's right.
Which is mainly what we're doing here. But then there's the other complication of that I'm a U.S. citizen, but I don't live there. I've been there 3 times in the last 3 years tops.
Mm-hmm.
So then, to whom do I owe taxes? Is the bigger question.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the work isn't being done on U.S. soil. In fact, none of us live in the U.S. Some of us are citizens, and this is good information for anybody who's digging into this. I'm not an attorney or a tax professional, but I'm an entrepreneur who's done his research. So maybe cross-check this with what listeners know. But in the U.S., there's a tax exemption for income earned abroad, paid from a foreign company.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which means if I was a teacher here in Vietnam, I would be paying taxes to the Vietnamese government, and it's about $100,000 tax write-off for the foreign income exclusion. So the question then is, okay, if I'm paying taxes to the U.S., why? Because none of the business is based there, and if so, do I use that tax exemption? Because I'm never going to take $100,000 a year out of this business for my own personal needs. There's no point. I don't spend like that.
Right.
If I buy something useful, it's going to be for the business anyway.
Right.
Hell, a private jet, even if we get to be billionaires, a private jet will be another business expense. I don't need the money.
Sure.
So there's that. And then the question is, are we gamers or are we a business? Where do you draw the line? Do we even need to incorporate? Do we even need to be paying taxes? Do we even need to be taking out fiat money? Taxes don't seem to apply. I don't know about the letter of the law, but it seems unenforceable to tax transactions that never leave the crypto ecosystem. I guess, and so then the question is, if we want to be legit, which we generally do we incorporate a company in Singapore, which has better tax laws, and because none of us are in the U.S., is more geographically advantageous and makes more sense. If I'm a Singapore business owner and I'm paying Singapore taxes, I'll hang out there. I'll use their amazing public transit system and public infrastructure and support, a country whose tax money I can enjoy the benefit of by just function of being there.
Absolutely.
So it's a really complicated question that my only firm advice is to do your research and cover your ass. If you're not going to pay taxes and you're going to take out fiat, then make sure you do it in a way that's either legal or hard to track. I don't like playing those games. I can win honestly. I don't need to cheat. Mm-hmm. But it's a game. Taxes, just like everything else, is a game. Is to figure out the optimal line of play, and that's where we are. We don't have enough money, and we definitely don't have enough sales yet to matter to anyone who would want to tax us. But we hope that will change by the end of the year, and that this will be questions we have to ask. My initial instinct, based on who I've talked to, is pretty much no matter who you are, but especially if you're in Southeast Asia, setting up a company in Singapore is the way to do it.
Right.
Because they have the simplest infrastructure for handling everything. It's clean, it's safe, it's modern. If you're a family guy, you can raise a family there. I wouldn't raise a family in Vietnam necessarily, etc. That's probably why, going back to your question about Southeast Asia, is you have hubs like Hong Kong and Singapore real close and a cheap flight away. Mm-hmm. And you've got all the major cities, all the Chinese and Japanese coastline, Malaysia, Indonesia, just huge population centers with people who are hungry to work and are, generally people with decent values. So I really can't recommend the region enough for entrepreneurs looking to get something off the ground. Live like a king on very little money, which is good for your startup runway.
Yeah, for sure. We had an original concept that we wanted to bring to you and probably plant that seeds for our next conversation. And do you want to get into that, Iman, or should we wait for another gathering?
For one, the camera's probably on its last leg. You know what I mean? Yeah, but we definitely need. There's a lot more to hash out.
And let me think about it, and then we'll go into it next time. Let me just seed it in my head.
Okay, yeah. Let me seed it to you. Okay, so the concept is pretty simple. So all the NFTs that exist today, CryptoKitties, Axies, Gods Unchained, etc. We consider that as the base layer NFT to what we're trying to look into called a second layer NFT. And the second layer is as simple as I'll give you an example of one directly that we're trying to think of. So let's say we create the second layer NFT. Let's call it an ore, like a material. And in this ore can be converted into other materials like carbon, and then diamond, and then kryptonite, and then adamantium, and then unobtainium.
You're talking about basically building crypto enforced chemistry.
Yes, exactly. And so with the second layer NFT, you can merge this second layer with any base layer NFT. You can merge this with an Axie Infinity just for the looks, to increase the value of the Axie Infinity. And the way that you would do that is you would start with an ore, right? And then you would stake or forge, or what was the other word? Well, let's say you forge this ore, and you forge it for, let's say, 1 week, and then you forge that along with $100 worth of dye. And so you stake it for a week, you forge it for a week, and then it converts into a carbon. And then in the next phase, you can forge it for a month for $500, right? You stake it for $500. Wow. And then you get a diamond.
I think I'm seeing where you're going with this. Right? Keep going.
Okay, so then you finally you spend, let's say, 3 or 4 years forging this material, and it turns into this solar core. Galactic.
Really like that one.
I really like that.
The solar core.
Yeah, you get this galactic core.
Just out of curiosity, how much Ray Kurzweil sci-fi have you read?
Dude, I'm all over Ray Kurzweil, man, and Elon, and Stephen Hawking, and all these guys. Asimov, yeah, absolutely.
What you're talking about now reminds me of Asimov's Last Question. If you've never read that, you must.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I like his series, man. It's one of the best. Elon talks about it all the time. Hey Ben, real quick, can you exit screen share? Because right now you're like a tiny little screen.
Oh, I thought I had done that already.
Yeah, exit it, and we'll be able to see you better. Okay, so let me finish
stop share there.
Yeah, let me finish this thought process. So now you've spent all these years forging this material, and what you can do with it is you can merge that with any base layer NFT. So let's say you have an Axie, a mythic Axie. You take this new smart contract that we developed that could potentially be a new ERC standard, where it takes a base layer NFT and it merges with a second layer NFT, the one that we would create. And the only thing it would do...
socketing.
Exactly, like enchanting or imbuing in our case.
Perfect, yeah. Whatever word we use.
Yeah, exactly. So you merge these two, and initially, it does, it increases the value of your Axie Infinity. And the reason is because when you look at this mythic Axie with this galactic core embedded, you know for sure that whoever forged this galactic core spent 3 years forging it, because he had to stake it for 3 years, and he had to stake it along with $5,000 worth of dye. And you know for sure that that's what happened. That's the only way you get a galactic core. And then the devs could say, hey, we want to support, the second layer ERC token. And when you play that Axie, it has like a different animation. Or when you play that Axie, it gets one plus on the critical, attributes. Mm-hmm. It could be whatever the devs like sort of decide to do. And so that's sort of what we're thinking of creating, and we want to kind of get that seed implanted in your head so that we can kind of talk about it more in depth. If you're still there.
I think it crapped out. The camera definitely did, huh?
Yeah. No, it's still going.
Oh,
let me see.
His stream did.
Oh no, man. We were getting to the juicy part. There he is. There he is.
Hello.
Hey, Ben. So how much of that the ending part did you hear?
I missed the last 30 seconds.
Okay, so I think the last 30 seconds was essentially
a little galactic core thing and viewing it into the Axie, and then the person who buys it is like, "Wow, this Axie's been imbued with years of proof of play, proof of work, investment."
Exactly.
My question there was, of course, having a galactic core material attached to the Axie makes it more valuable, but without the Axie, let's assume that the Axie team is not bought in on adding in-game functionality beyond what they already do. Can the player who owns the Axie with the core, melded onto it, detach the core?
Oh, absolutely. So yeah, so this is
right?
Yeah, this is detachable.
That's like it's a token. Yeah.
Yeah, this is detachable, and so like think of it as right now Axies only supporting ERC 721 tokens for their game, and all they would need to do is support this ERC 821 token, which is a merged Axie, and they don't have to add to the gameplay. It could just change the animations. Just because it has a galactic core in it, but it doesn't really change the mechanics of the game, and it's really up to.
But Axie still need to do something there to make it valuable, and I think the key to a token spec that does this is that it must be intrinsically valuable without the help of any partner NFTs. Just to keep it in the theme of the DeFi blockchain world, is it has to be permissionless, or else no one's gonna.
Oh, for sure.
You're just gonna be up against the bottleneck of, oh, hey, can you add this animation or that animation?
And so we're not depending on devs to support it. All we're saying is, as the Axie collector, he has a mythic Axie, and he's forged this galactic core because he spent the 3 years forging it, right? Oh, and from his perspective, he's just merging the two and saying, look at my valuable mythic Axie with galactic core. I can sell this for 3 or 4 times the price of the original Axie just because of its speculative value, and that's that. You can separate the two. You can play the Axie by itself, but the intent is that you have an NFT token that is considered as a merged token with this core.
Yep, I love it. I think the most valuable part of that entire idea is the long form tech tree of slowly gathering and upgrading materials, because that creates a race condition where it's like, okay, who's going to be the first guy to forge the first Dying Sun's
and so let me add just a tiny layer to this. So when you collect these initial ores, they have their own properties, right? And those properties will be a random roll of purity, color, whatever, the properties that we make up that end up being considered rare. And so then
basically you're doing like what breeding is in Axie by melding elements together and getting semi-random properties.
Exactly. And then
dude, this is fire. I can't believe this doesn't exist yet.
Yeah, right.
That's what we did.
I was working on it, man. I'm gonna. You got me thinking. I'm not gonna sleep tonight.
Yeah, that's why we wanted to tell you.
You just gave me an idea for like an entire game, and this might be the precursor that gives me the boost I need to get escape velocity. Because I think. Again, I'm mentioning my mom on this. Mom, you're getting shout out on the podcast twice. Yeah. My mom saw Axie and she's like, I really think genetic gaming is going to be a trend.
Yeah, for sure.
She's like me. She's about freaking everything. She's like, the ability to produce more cards is amazing, and it adds an infinite dimension of gameplay, kind of building on the customization that Magic innovated on almost 30 years ago. Right. So I'm thinking the idea of I guess what I called it was chemistry on the blockchain, is like sci-fi chemistry, space chemistry, things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because most games are about fighting and the people and the monsters. But what if it's just an MMO game that's where you're emulating research scientists or something? It sounds like a really dry subject matter, but there's ways to punch it up so it doesn't sound so super lame.
Yeah, for sure.
You're a team working on your dissertation. Your deadline is years away. You have no motivation and no real skills.
Right.
No one's going to play that game.
Right. And so last concept here for implementation is, now what if you can forge this material in Decentraland, and if you do that, you're heading down a different evolutionary path of the rock. Perhaps you end up not with a galactic core, but with some DCL version of a mythic core,
right?
And then you do the same thing in Axie.
Skin, just the same item with a different skin.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much the same thing. Yeah.
Or platform exclusive items like Axie did with MakerDAO.
Yeah, exactly.
MakerDAO did with Axie, things like that. Yeah, I mean, this is one of the biggest. Will be one of the biggest improvements to Ethereum, is a proper gaming layer on top of it. So I know guys like Zenzo. I was on their cast a few days ago.
Mm-hmm.
They're working on their own L1 solution because kind of like the reason that we're going to roll our own utility token is there's no existing solution that natively supports everything they need to do for their game. So if I build a game, it might be on their blockchain instead of on ETH's blockchain, but you could it might be even easier to execute on a custom built chain. So whether it's an ERC improvement or a feature or like an L2 feature of a purpose built chain, I'm ambivalent about that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, for sure.
But the idea itself of like forging raw materials and long time development for things, like a game that literally takes years to get to like breeding the really epic stuff is, we don't really have something that's like dedicated to that. I'm sure CSC has things that are like that, but CSC is like a huge complex game. I'm thinking something much more simple where, for example, like in Axie, there's no definite end goal. It's just have more, see where the game goes. I have goals like I want an Axie with all 6 Japanese skin parts, and I want a pure reptile that has this part. But that's just my own personal volition. That's what I need, and that's what I'm into. But if we had a game where it was like a first person to forge a diamond gets a prize, first person to discover a new element gets a prize, things like that. So in whatever makes sense, sci-fi, fantasy, steampunk, whatever the skin is, doesn't matter as long as the game designer can match the skin to the mechanics.
Yeah, for sure.
But just being able to say, hey, it's going to take at least 2 or 3 years to even discover one of the recipes.
I think
I was saying,
yeah, go ahead.
Video games that people could play for 5 years, where it's like, okay, no one's even going to discover the recipe for how to mint diamonds until year 2.
Right.
No one's gonna be able to even gather enough resources. In year 5, we might get our first diamond. Right. So I love the idea of building a video game that give like a tech tree progression from the beginning until like some kind of end game. I get 40 guys to beat the fire monster underground, or else, if you don't have 40 of your best guys, you're not going to do it. There was a huge race to be the first one to take down Ragnaros in World of Warcraft. And that creates, a really nice rivalry, a nice NASA style arms race. And I want to, in the game I designed, in the game I'm evaluating for purchase, whatever, I want to see those mechanics that give people an aspirational bent to their actions, not just get more money, but do this game action and do these actions repeatedly. So best example for me was farming recipes in World of Warcraft so that my enchanter could do everything.
Exactly.
Once my enchanter could do everything, I could sell enchantments and materials for more. So same thing here is like I had an end goal in mind, discovering recipes, then getting the materials to craft for those recipes, selling what I craft for money to buy more materials. A game like that, that's focused on these elements that you're discussing, wrapped in the right skin. I have like this weird intuition that steampunk might be the way to go, like steampunk discovery.
Yeah, for sure.
Kind of thing. I'm just totally spitballing here, but I think we're going to see more and more games based on this idea of tokens that can create more tokens.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Ben, so I really appreciate you joining us, man. We definitely want to have you back. When do you think you can come back? Like, when's the launch for Axie.gg?
We're hoping to have things kind of wrapped up by mid-February, maybe sooner, depending on what finishes when. Just going to try to get something basic up online to put our inventory in front of people.
Okay.
I need to do some work on the pricing algorithm to make sure that we can price things at scale, not manually. But we can start putting up stuff manually, and obviously it's a priority to get it out the door. I'm happy to come on before the launch again as well if we get delayed, but after the launch, there's a lot more I'll be able to talk about too. And then we can go into some details about the more out there stuff like augmented reality and some of the work I'm doing in sports that combines augmented reality. But for now, I think we've had more than enough.
Yeah, no, for sure. We definitely want to see that gadget for the next round, for sure. There it comes.
One more sneak peek. One more sneak peek.
Look at that thing, man. There it goes.
Does it project if you turn that the other direction? Would it project onto your drapes or?
Yeah, absolutely. But it's so bright. I haven't turned on the computer that powers it, and it's really bright in here. But
I see.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
you can kind of sort of The projector lens, I think, is broken. I gotta switch the projector out.
Yeah.
It's not hooked up to anything, but like you can see that in a fairly light room in the middle of the day,
Yeah.
it's having no problem putting a little. That's like probably one tiny portion of the screen.
Okay.
Since it's on its standby mode, it would take up this entire thing. Oh, here's a cat. Look, found a cat. In theory, the camera should be able to, when it's running, identify that it has seen a cat.
Right.
And then it can draw a laser, it can draw like a projection of a mouse to entertain the cat.
Mm-hmm.
Not joking. I plan to use this as a cat toy primarily.
Dang.
No way.
Maybe not primarily.
Yeah.
Primarily.
He's gonna have a whole. When I'm not in the studio, he's gonna have a whole jungle in that VR room.
Yeah. All right,
Hell, I
man.
don't get out much.
You
Anyway,
definitely.
man, thanks for your time today. This has been fun.
No, absolutely. You're definitely invited back. Let's keep in touch. Think about that seed, and let's see how soon we can get back on and hash this out.
Oh yeah. By the time I'm on again, it's going to be at least a seedling, if not more.
Yeah.
So I will be keeping that in the front of my mind, and I'm also going to think about what we can do to execute on that now that doesn't require building things. Like what can we do with Axie or DCL or both?
Yeah. So
actually, on that note, what's the best? This is a good question that I should ask you to close to help kind of support your cause. Is what can I and/or my listeners do to like dip our toes in DCL to just give us a little cheap sandbox? Like we're not trying to hodl and make money here. I don't care if it's near anything. In fact, I would love to have like a big open parcel out in like the middle of nowhere in like nature.
Yeah.
To just do. So maybe in like the show notes or something, put some resources for getting started in DCL and like
absolutely
how to like get your first parcel and do something with it. Because I've got tons of 3D animation experience and stuff, so I'm just dying to get in there. I just don't know what to do or where to start or how to like meld it in with everything else I'm doing.
Yeah, the only thing that we'd tell you is for sure, make sure you sign up to get an avatar. And once you have an avatar, they'll invite you to be able to visit the land. And then from there, you can actually jump into the game and walk around Decentraland. And you can actually see different lands that you could purchase from the marketplace or actually physically visit the land itself. And then from there, you'll be able to go to metazone.io and then find any application that a developer created that's deployed in MetaZone that can be deployed onto your land and potentially earn passive income.
And then I can deploy my own app
exactly
on the land as well.
Exactly right.
Make one?
Yep.
And
okay. After the show, can you just send me some resources for like a developer who wants to get started tinkering in DCL? I'm not trying to make money, just like I want a sandbox.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
You definitely want to go to.
I'll trade you some Axies for some land.
Yeah. Hey, that's
maybe.
possible.
For sure.
Possible.
I definitely want to get into Axies.
I'll trade you some Axie land for DCL land. How about that?
Yeah,
and
even better.
Axies.
Even better.
Okay. That's definitely on the table.
Well,
but for sure.
Start my day. You guys got to end yours.
All right, man. I appreciate it, Ben. We'll talk soon, man.
Anytime.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.